Tonight in this quiet space, allow your mind to let go a little. The noise of a long day gradually fades, the shoulders grow lighter, and the breath returns slowly, gently. This moment is no longer a race, but a journey of returning home where each person can listen to themselves. We continue together, going deeper into Zen stories passed down through many generations. Each story is like a small lamp illuminating a path that might otherwise be covered in the darkness of worry and fatigue. There we realize that peace does not come from searching outward, but from the ability to release the burdens within the mind. When the mind relaxes, deep and peaceful sleep naturally comes. The ancient masters once taught, "The one who conquers himself achieves the greatest victory." This saying is not only a reminder, but also a key to open the door of peace. Because when you sit down, take a deep breath in, and slowly breathe out, that is the moment you are conquering the restlessness within. That is the very first step on the path of letting go, awakening, and resting deeply. Feel that right now there is nothing more you need to strive to do. Simply let yourself flow with the story, so that each word, each tone, like the soft ringing of a temple bell, helps you rediscover the stillness within. Welcome back to the journey with the beloved home of Buddhism seeds. Now, as the mind has settled, let us begin the first Zen story, the story of an artist and his unfinished painting. In life, perhaps all of us have experienced the feeling of wanting to complete something perfectly. Some people spend their lives building a house. Others pour all their effort into a career. Some yearn to fulfill their duty as parents, and some wish to paint for themselves a flawless picture of life. Yet sometimes we discover that no matter how much we try, things remain unfinished, still lacking in some way. The question arises, is this incompleteness a failure, or is it the true breath of impermanence? The Buddha once taught, all conditioned things are impermanent, like a lamp before the wind, like bubbles in the stream, like a passing dream. When we understand impermanence, we no longer fear what is incomplete. On the contrary, we realize that the very unfinishedness itself opens up freshness and vitality each day. Today's story is about a painter named Daichi, who longed all his life to complete a painting of paradise. But in the end, what he left his disciple was not a perfect painting, but a profoundly deep teaching. Long ago, in a small village nestled at the foot of snowy mountains, there lived an old painter named Daichi. He was famous throughout the region for his murals, landscapes, and solemn paintings of the Buddha. The villagers believed that his brush strokes did not just capture images, but infused them with a soul. Yet deep inside, Daichi still carried a great dream to paint paradise, a masterpiece he believed would be the ultimate fulfillment of his life. He began sketching it in his early 30s, choosing the finest silk, the purest pigments. Each day after completing commissioned work for the villagers, he would sit alone in his small room, light an oil lamp, and carefully add detail after detail to that vision of paradise. As the years passed, the painting grew clearer. Floating white clouds, fields of green grass, cranes flying in a gentle, mysterious light. Those who saw it marveled, saying that just looking at it brought peace to their hearts. But for Daichi, something still seemed missing. Once he added a still pond reflecting the moonlight. But after finishing, he felt it lacked trees along the shore. Another time, he painted bamboo groves along the hillside, then felt the sky in the distance looked too empty. And so, from spring to summer, from summer to winter, the painting remained unfinished. His disciple, a young man named Riku, often grew impatient. "Master, when will this painting be complete? I long for the day I can see the paradise you have cherished." Daichi smiled gently. "Riku, be patient. Each time I think it is almost finished, I see that something is still missing." And so the years flowed like a stream. Daichi grew from a strong man into a bent, gray-haired elder. Yet he still persisted, stroke after stroke, never abandoning his dream of paradise. One autumn evening, as the breeze passed through the window and the oil lamp flickered, Daichi lay on his old bamboo bed. Riku sat beside him, looking at the unfinished painting with a heavy heart. The painter smiled faintly. "Riku, you see, this painting has never been finished throughout my life, but precisely because of that, it is still alive. It is always new. If one day I claimed it was done from that day on, it would die within its frame, no longer able to grow." Then Daichi closed his eyes, his breath softened, and he passed away in peace. Have you ever seen a river complete its flowing? It just continues surging in the rainy season, murmuring in the dry season, sometimes wide, sometimes narrow, sometimes clear, sometimes muddy. If anyone claimed the river was finished, surely it would no longer be a river, but a stagnant pond. In the same way, Daiichi's painting, like our own lives, is most beautiful when it is still unfolding, still changing, never locked within rigid perfection. This story is not only about a painting, but also a metaphor for each person's life. We often cling to dreams of perfection, a flawless career, an ideal family, a faultless self. But as the Buddha taught about impermanence, everything is always moving, always changing. And it is within this very change that true life exists. If you always wait for everything to be finished before being happy, then perhaps you will never find happiness in your lifetime, because impermanence does not allow for absolute completion. But if you learn to appreciate each step, each effort, each unfinished moment, you will realize that life has never lacked miracles. Look into daily life. When you are raising a child, the care is never done, yet love is still abundant. When you are working, the to-do list never ends yet, and each task completed, there is a small joy. When you are practicing, the mind is never completely still yet. Within each mindful breath, peace is already present. The Dharma teaches, within the incomplete, there is already completeness, because unfinishedness is itself the expression of vitality of impermanence always in motion. In life, you can practice this completely. First, take a deep breath and smile at the tasks still left undone today. They are not burdens, but opportunities for tomorrow to still hold something to live with, to work with. Second, do not wait for perfection before loving. Love your family now, even while they are still incomplete, still imperfect. Third, do not wait for the mind to be fully pure before meditating. Even in the midst of restless thoughts, awareness can still shine through. When you see the beauty of the unfinished, you become lighter, calmer, and each day becomes like a painting still being drawn, always fresh, always alive. The story of painter Daichi shows us the beauty of the unfinished. But there is another kind of challenge in human life. When honor, pride, and anger arise, can we still keep our mind at peace? Let us step into the next story, the samurai, and the gates, where a warrior seeks out a Zen master to ask about heaven and hell, and discovers that those gates are not far away, but right within his own mind, opening in just a single moment. In daily life, have you ever asked yourself, where are hell and heaven? We often think of them as faraway places only revealed after death. But in truth, at every moment of living, hell and heaven open directly from our own mind. Perhaps you have experienced it. A small insult ignites anger in you, and in just a second, the whole world around you becomes hell. On the other hand, there are times when a gesture of sincere love, a glance of compassion, makes you feel as if you have stepped into heaven. The Buddha once taught hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. This is an eternal law. Dhammapada. The gate to hell or heaven does not lie outside life, but within our own thoughts. Just one thought of anger or one thought of mindfulness can open two entirely opposite gates. Long ago, during a time of war in Japan, there was a seasoned samurai named Noburo. He had endured dozens of battles, carried countless scars, and his eyes always held both the hardness and the weariness of a life spent in killing. One day, having stepped away from the battlefield, Noburo sought out Zen master Hakuin, renowned throughout the region for his profound wisdom and direct, straightforward teaching. Kneeling before the master, his voice hoarse from years of shouting and battle, he asked, "Master, please tell me truly, after death is there heaven and hell?" Hakuin looked at him, his eyes calm like a still lake. After a long moment, he asked, "Who are you to dare ask such a question?" Noburo straightened his chest and declared firmly, "I am a samurai. I have fought all my life, never knowing fear, never retreating." Hearing this, the master sneered. "A rude man with a face like a beggar dares to call himself a samurai. You are unfit to protect anyone, let alone your lord." Blood boiled in Noburo's veins. His face turned red. His hands shook with rage as he grasped the hilt of his sword. The steel glinted cold in the afternoon sun. Overcome with fury, he wanted nothing more than to cut down the master who dared insult his honor. At that very moment, Hakuin calmly said, "There the gate of hell is opening." Like a bolt of lightning through his mind, Noburo froze. Cold sweat ran down his neck as he suddenly realized it was true. His blind anger had turned him into a murderer, transforming the world around him into hell. Trembling, he released the hilt of his sword, dropped to his knees, and bowed before the master, his eyes wet with emotion. In that instant, shame turned into reverence, and anger turned into gratitude. Hakuin looked at him with kind eyes, and there, the gate of heaven is opening. Noburo bowed low. For the first time in his warrior's life, he understood that heaven and hell were not far away, but lay within each thought that arose in his own mind. You can picture it simply when someone is angry, their face flushed heart-pounding words spewing venom that is hell in the present moment. But in another moment, when the same person smiles, lets go of pride, offers a hug, instantly heaven appears. It is like an electric switch. Just a flick on or off, and the entire room changes completely. Our mind is the same. With just a single instant of change, the whole realm shifts. This story points to a truth both simple and profound. Heaven and hell are not vague realms waiting after death. but realities opened right within our consciousness in each moment of this life. When greed, anger, and delusion arise, we immediately step through the gate of hell. A thought of envy, a harsh word, an act of hatred. Any of these can turn that moment into a blazing inferno where both we and others are burned. But on the other hand, with just one thought of compassion, one act of forgiveness, one small gesture of love, heaven opens, shining its cool light into everyday life. In practice, this is easy to see. When someone hurts you, if you quickly retaliate, you feel anger spread like fire, burning your own heart and weighing both sides down in suffering. But if you pause for just one breath, breathing slowly and deeply, and recognize that you are standing right at the threshold of hell, you have the choice not to step in. And the moment you choose patience, choose to listen, choose to let go, the gate of heaven opens, bringing peace not only to you, but also to the other person. The Buddha taught mind precedes all things. If the mind is impure, suffering follows. If the mind is pure, peace follows. That teaching is the key to knowing which realm we are living in. Heaven or hell is not far away, but lies within each thought, each decision in our daily lives. And most importantly, we have the power to transform realms right in the present moment. Samurai Noboru learned that one thought of anger opens hell. One thought of awareness opens heaven. This shows us that the truth of the way does not always lie in the extraordinary, but in the most ordinary moments. So perhaps the greatest miracle is the simplest thing happening in daily life. Let us now move on to the next story, The True Miracle, where a great Zen master reveals that miracles are not about walking on water or flying through the air, but about eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, enjoying flowers when spring arrives, and watching snow fall when winter comes. From ancient times until now, people have always longed for miracles. When we suffer, we hope for a miracle to heal us. When we are stuck, we wish for a divine hand to pull us out of the pit. When we are weak, we pray for some power that could completely change our lives. But have you ever thought that maybe in chasing after what we call miracles, we often overlook the wonders already happening every single day? Just look. We can breathe fresh air, walk on our own feet, hear birds singing outside the window, drink a sip of cool water. Things that seem ordinary, yet if they were gone, you would realize how miraculous they truly are. The Buddha taught, the greatest miracle is not walking on water or flying through the air, but walking on this earth with mindfulness. Hearing this, we suddenly understand true wonder is not far away, but right within our breath and steps in the present moment. To illustrate this, let me share with you the story of a Zen master who taught his students through the simplicity of daily life. Long ago in Japan, there was a Zen master famous throughout the region named Bankei. He was respected not only for his deep wisdom, but also for his straightforward teaching style, free from lofty theories. People often said that listening to Bankei was like looking into a mirror, seeing oneself clearly. One day, a group of young students came to him. They had traveled through many places, listening to various teachers who spoke about miracles and special powers of practitioners. Their hearts carried both excitement and doubt. One student stood up and asked, "Master, many other teachers say that the enlightened can do extraordinary things, walk on water, fly through the air, see the future. Please tell us, do you have any miracles?" The hall fell silent. Everyone held their breath. Surely they thought a Zen master as renowned as Bankei must have special powers. Bankei smiled gently. Looking directly at the crowd, he slowly replied, "My true miracle is this: when I am hungry, I eat. When I am tired, I sleep." The students were stunned. Some looked disappointed. Someone even thought, "But everyone eats when hungry and sleeps when tired." The master only said something anyone can do. Seeing this, Bankei continued, "You think you eat when you are hungry and sleep when you are tired? No. When you eat, your mind runs in 1,000 directions to yesterday's stories, to tomorrow's worries. When you sleep, your mind still spins in endless dreams. That is not truly eating, nor truly sleeping." He paused, his gaze kind yet sharp. "As for me, when I eat, I know I am eating. When I sleep, I know I am sleeping. That is the miracle." The hall was silent. In that simplicity, the students realized something they had never thought of. The miracle is not far away, but right in the act of being fully present in the most ordinary things. Picture this familiar scene. One person walks in the park, but instead of seeing flowers or hearing birds, they stare at their phone. Their steps move like a machine, their mind drifting along endless streams of information. Returning home, if asked, what flowers bloomed in the park today? What birds were singing, they would not remember, even though they passed by them all. Meanwhile, another person walks the same path under the same trees, but with mindfulness. They step slowly, aware of each breath, opening their heart to the sound of birds, the fragrance of grass, the sunlight shining through the leaves. This person is not just taking a walk, they are truly living. The difference is not in the park, but in how one is present in that moment. Bankei, a great Zen master, reminded us, the miracle is not in something far away, but in the ordinary if we are fully present. But people often chase after the extraordinary, seeking some distant miracle, while forgetting the wonder right before their eyes. We search for heaven somewhere far off, without seeing that heaven is the step, the breath, the smile in the present. Think about it when you eat in a hurry, chewing, while thinking about work that is eating in unconsciousness. The food may be delicious, but your mind is not present to enjoy it. In contrast, if you put your phone aside, take a deep breath, chew, slowly taste the sweetness of the rice, and remember the hands that planted it, then that meal becomes a sacred celebration. When you sleep, if you carry yesterday's worries or tomorrow's plans, your sleep will be restless and heavy. But if before sleeping, you let everything go, allowing the mind to rest, allowing the breath to guide you back, then that sleep becomes a miracle. You are not just sleeping, but being comforted and healed. When you walk, if your mind is still chasing yesterday's problems or tomorrow's plans, you will not see anything around you. You only pass by life without ever touching it. But if you place each step fully on the ground, feeling the earth's steadiness supporting you, then every step is a kiss of return to yourself. The Buddha once taught, "The one who knows how to live in the present moment dwells in nirvana here and now." Nirvana is not in some far-off realm, but in the very moment you live fully. Nirvana is a meal full of gratitude, a peaceful sleep, a relaxed step. So how can we apply this in daily life? When eating, practice mindful eating. Turn off screens. Put work aside. Just eat. When sleeping before bed, take deep breaths, let go of all thoughts, remind yourself, now is the time to rest. When walking, don't let the mind wander. Let each step be a return, a touch of heaven, right here. When you practice this way, you don't need to search for miracles elsewhere. Your whole life, every moment you live, is already a miracle. The story of Zen Master Bankei shows us the greatest wonder lies in the simplest things. We don't need to wait for some supernatural power to find peace. We only need to return to ourselves in each breath, each step, each meal, each sleep. And then when we see the wonder of the present, we will also learn to cherish each fleeting moment of life. Because if today we don't recognize its value, tomorrow may already be too late. Let us now move on to the next story, The Last Leaf, where a young monk sees a leaf fall and is taught by his master about fragility and impermanence, so that he learns to treasure every remaining moment. Human life has always been bound to impermanence. Everything we love is fragile, easily lost. Sometimes just one small change, a leaf falling, or the footsteps of a loved one walking away, is enough to leave our hearts empty. And we often forget that it is precisely this fragility that makes every moment precious. Have you ever thought if everything stayed with us forever, we would never truly cherish it? We usually wait until something is gone to realize its value. But impermanence is not meant to make us fearful, it is meant to remind us to awaken in every single moment. The Buddha once taught, in all that arises and ceases, see the truth of impermanence. Knowing impermanence, the heart learns to treasure and to let go. Today's story is about a young novice who looked at the last leaf left clinging to a branch, and through it learned a lesson about impermanence and love. In the courtyard of an ancient temple, high in the mountains, autumn was reaching its final days. The wide courtyard lay quiet, with only the cool autumn wind blowing through rows of old trees. Golden leaves had already fallen, covering the path in a thin layer, like a carpet dyed with the colors of time. The young novice Masato held a bamboo broom, diligently sweeping the leaves, yet his eyes kept lifting toward a tree in the front yard. On its branch, there remained only a single leaf trembling in the wind, as if desperately trying to hold on to its life. From that moment, Masato's young heart was captivated by the leaf. Each gust of wind shook it violently, as if it might fall at any second. He stopped sweeping, unable to look away, a strange sadness rising in him, as though his own existence too was fragile, hanging loosely on a branch. That night, as the wind howled around the temple roof, he lay awake thinking of the leaf, wondering if it would still be there the next morning. At dawn, as the sun rose behind the mountain, Masato hurried to the courtyard, his small feet stepping on the wet morning dew. Looking up, he saw only emptiness. The last leaf was gone. His heart sank. Bowing down, he searched around the roots and gently picked up the golden leaf lying still on the ground. Holding it in his hands, he felt a deep emptiness, as if he had just lost a dear friend. Unable to contain his emotions, Masato ran to his master, clutching the leaf, his eyes red, his voice trembling. "Master, the last leaf has fallen. I feel so sad. Why must everything beautiful fall? Why must everything come to an end? The old teacher looked at his student, his eyes gentle like a calm lake. Slowly, he turned toward the courtyard, where bare branches stood against the deep blue sky. Then he smiled softly, his voice warm. Masato, it is because the leaf falls that you knew it was precious, while it was still on the branch. If the leaf had stayed forever, you would never have seen how beautiful it truly was. The words swept into Masato's young heart like a breeze. He froze, staring at the leaf in his hand. Suddenly, the sadness seemed to dissolve, replaced by a small glimmer of light. Yes, perhaps it was precisely because it was fragile, because it would soon fall, that we learned to value every moment it was alive. From that day on, Masato no longer looked at falling leaves with heavy sorrow. Instead, whenever a leaf fell, he would smile and pick it up with gratitude. A falling leaf was not only a sign of loss, but also a reminder: love now, cherish, now while we still have each other. And among the seasons of falling leaves, Masato learned a great lesson: that impermanence is not meant to drive us to despair, but to teach us to treasure every moment of life as a sacred gift. Do you remember a time when you looked at a blooming flower? Knowing it would wilt tomorrow, you felt it was heartbreakingly beautiful. But if it bloomed forever, you would get used to it, then ignore it, no longer moved. It is the same with a piece of music. Only because it ends do we feel its wholeness. If the melody went on endlessly, its beauty would vanish. The last leaf is the same. It falls to remind us that all life is finite and therefore priceless. The story of the falling leaf reminds us of something profound. Impermanence is not meant to make us grieve despair or grow weary of life. Impermanence is present as an awakening call, so we learn to cherish what we have. Because we know everything is fragile, we can love more, let go more easily, and value every moment more deeply. Think about it. When you see a loved one beside you, can you be sure they will still be there tomorrow? No one can know what is to come, so why hesitate to give a word of love, a warm hug, or even a tender look? Many people regret what they did not do, what they did not say once time has taken the chance away. But if you are mindful of impermanence, you will live without regrets, because you give love while you still can. In the same way, when you live an ordinary day, a morning going to work, a simple meal, an evening walk, do not dismiss it. Know that this day will pass, never to return. If you live carelessly, absent-mindedly, the day is lost forever. But if you live fully, placing your heart in every moment, the day becomes a beautiful memory, a precious piece of your life. That is the awakening impermanence teaches us. And when you face suffering, remember that it too will pass. Like the falling leaf, like autumn fading, every sadness eventually softens with time. Anger, disappointment, loneliness, none of them last forever. They only pass through, leaving a trace, then quietly leaving. If you cling to them, you prolong suffering. But if you see them through the eyes of impermanence, you will know that pain is only a temporary guest. The Buddha once taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Seeing impermanence, the mind realizes non-self, the mind learns release. When we see impermanence clearly, we stop clinging. We no longer mistake ourselves for what is fleeting. We let go lightly, the heart opens wide, and that is the beginning of peace. In daily life, you can fully practice this. Sit and meditate on impermanence, Simply observe your breath coming and going, rising and ceasing. Practice gratitude each day. Take 1 minute to appreciate what you have: a warm meal, a roof over your head, a companion. Even the smallest things are precious. Practice acceptance and letting go when someone leaves, when something ends, instead of clinging. Smile at impermanence, for, it is the natural law of life. When you live with this vision, every day becomes a gift, every moment becomes heaven. Impermanence is no longer something to fear, but a kind teacher, always reminding you, live love right now. The last leaf falls to remind us that every moment is precious, because it will never return again. Yet humans often are dissatisfied with the very lives they have. We dream of becoming someone else, of having more power, more wealth, and suffer in the grip of those cravings. Let us now move to the next story, The Journey of the Stonecutter, where a man, through many wishes to change his fate, finally realizes that true happiness has always been present in his very own life. Human beings often carry an unending longing to become someone else, to have more than we have now. When we are poor, we wish to be rich. When we are rich, we want power. When we have power, we want more than power can give. The farther we go, the more restless our hearts become, because craving has no end point. Have you ever asked yourself, if you achieved everything you desired, would your heart truly be satisfied? The Buddha taught, no fire burns like the fire of ambition. No calamity is greater than greed that does not know enough. Endless craving drives us on and on, only to bring us back to where we started, to realize that happiness already lies in what we have. Today's story about the stonecutter proves the cycle of greed and offers a lesson that awakens us to the fullness of the present. Long ago, at the foot of a distant mountain range, there lived a poor stonecutter named Kenshiro. His life revolved around a hammer, a chisel, and the heavy slabs of stone he had to carve day after day. At dawn, as the sun rose, Kenshiro climbed the mountain. Each strike of his hammer against the rock rang like the lament of his life. Sweat fell, his shirt was soaked, his hands were calloused. In return, he received only a meager wage to buy rice and feed his family. At night, gazing at the flickering oil lamp, Kenshiro often sighed, his heart full of resentment. How unfair fate is. Why am I miserable while others live in comfort? One day, on his way down from the mountain, Kenshiro stopped before a splendid mansion. High walls tiled in red guards, standing in formation, servants bustling in and out. The faint sound of music in the air made him feel small and pitiful. Looking at the wealth before him, he sighed. If only I were a great official with authority and many servants, surely my life would be different. Something strange happened. As soon as he spoke, an invisible power, as if hearing his heart's desire, granted his wish. In a blink, Kenshiro was dressed in ceremonial robes, seated in a lavish residence. Servants bowed low in respect. He walked with pride. Yes, this is the life I deserve, he thought. Yet his authority had limits. In the presence of the king, Kenshiro had to bow to comply, not daring to disobey. One late night in the palace, he looked up at the radiant throne and thought, a high official is only a servant of the king. The highest power belongs to the sovereign. If only I were king. Instantly, he found himself on the throne, a gleaming crown upon his head. Drums thundered, the people prostrated themselves. Kenshiro was overjoyed, believing he had reached the pinnacle of power. But after a time, looking up at the sky, he saw the blazing sun shining everywhere. Even the king could not command it. Sunlight pierced the palace roof and illuminated the land. No one could resist it. Kenshiro was stunned. So true power is the sun. If only I were the sun. No sooner had he thought it than he became the sun hanging resplendent in the sky. His light reached every village, shone on mountains and forests, and warmed all beings. Kenshiro felt invincible, but then thick clouds gathered and covered his light. People looked up and saw only gloom. No one spoke of the sun. Kenshiro reeled. Then the clouds are greatest. I want to be a cloud. He became a vast cloud drifting across the sky. He blocked the sun's light and poured rain upon the earth. People looked up and prayed for rain brought harvests. Kenshiro was pleased. Yet he then saw torrents rushing across the land, seemingly ready to flood everything, only to be halted and redirected by a towering mountain. No matter how much it rained, the mountain stood firm and unshaken. Kenshiro shuddered. The mountain is truly supreme. I want to be a mountain. At once, Kenshiro became a gigantic mountain standing silent between heaven and earth. He felt a power he had never known, certain he had finally reached absolute might. Nothing could move him. No ruler could compare. No sun or rain could change him. Kenshiro was satisfied and proud. But on a quiet morning, in a light breeze and birdsong, Kenshiro heard a strange sound, tap, 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 coming from his base. He listened closely. Each strike landed on his very body, small but persistent. Kenshiro started. At his foot, a stonecutter hammer and chisel in hand was striking him. Each tap echoed like a call to awaken. Small chips fell from the gigantic mountain from Kenshiro himself. He was stunned. His heart trembled. He suddenly realized it was not the sun, not the clouds, not the mountain, but the stonecutter who had the power to wear down even a mountain. And more surprising still, the figure was not unfamiliar. That stonecutter was himself. The long circle of wishing had brought him back to his starting point. In that moment, Kenshiro awakened. He burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the mountains and forests. All his ambition, rivalry, and comparisons dissolved like mist. He returned to being the poor stonecutter, but without complaint, without resentment. He worked in the morning light, sweat still falling onto the stone, yet his heart was different, a heart that knew enough, that cherished simple work, and that knew true strength does not lie outside, but within. From then on, Kenshiro lived simple, peaceful days. The sounds of hammer and chisel no longer lamented. They became music in harmony with the mountains and trees. He understood that happiness does not come from becoming someone else, but from accepting and cherishing oneself. And that is the greatest treasure life can give. Imagine this: a man spends his life traveling the world in search of treasure. After many years of wandering, he returns home exhausted and empty-handed, only to discover that the real treasure is the small garden behind his house, the one he had long neglected. Or like a stream racing to find the sea, believing greatness lies only in merging with the ocean. It forgets that each drop in a small brook, if it knows how to sparkle under the sun, is already a miracle. The stonecutter is a mirror of ourselves. Each time we believe happiness lies somewhere else in another role or life, we miss the joy available in the present. Kenshiro the stonecutter leaves us a profound lesson. boundless craving traps people in a cycle of suffering, wanting to be an official, then a king, then the sun, the clouds, the mountain. The circle brought him back to himself. Only then did he see that happiness is not in becoming someone else, but in knowing enough and accepting the life that is already his. The Buddha taught contentment is the greatest wealth. One who knows enough is happy even lying on the ground. One who does not know enough is dissatisfied, even in heaven. That saying is a clear mirror reflecting the human mind. Ambition can take us far, but it never grants true satisfaction. What we chase is not real happiness, but only the shadow of desire. In modern life, greed no longer wears the robes of thrones or clouds, but hides within seemingly ordinary cravings: more money, a bigger house, greater fame. You may find yourself comparing with colleagues or friends and growing discontent, but if you pause and take a slow breath, you will remember each person has their own path. No one can live for another. When greed arises, try asking yourself, will what I want truly bring peace? Or is it only the push of ego? Looking deeply, you will see that many things we think are essential do not make life happier. They only add weight to our burden. And when life feels lacking, return to the small but priceless things. Your breath is still here. Your family is still with you. A simple meal can still warm the heart. If you stop and appreciate, you will see you already have so much. Practice this way. Happiness is no longer a distant destination. It appears in each moment of living. If you loosen craving and nurture contentment, each passing day becomes a day of richness and ease. The stonecutter traveled a long circle to return to himself, and through that, he awakened. Yet often, our minds are also clouded like a bright mirror covered in thick dust. So how do we wipe away the dust that veils the mind and see the light already within? Let us move on to the next story, The Dust-Covered Mirror, where a student learns a deep lesson by cleaning an old mirror and realizes that the mind is originally bright, and when defilements are cleared away, wisdom naturally reveals itself. Within each of us there is an innately pure and radiant mind, but because of the layers of dust from greed, anger, and delusion covering it, we no longer recognize that light. At times, we think of ourselves as ugly, sinful, or not good enough, and then live an entire life in guilt and struggle. In truth, that bright mind has never been lost, it is only hidden. Perhaps you have asked yourself, why is my mind still restless even after years of practice? Why do I still feel troubled despite meditating for so long? The answer is this: it is not that you lack light, but that the dust has not yet been wiped away. The Buddha once taught, this mind is originally bright, but it is obscured by defilements. When those defilements are cleansed, wisdom naturally reveals itself. Long ago, in a small temple, nestled in a quiet countryside, there was a lay woman named Sayuri. For many years, she had devoted herself wholeheartedly to the Dharma. Each morning she chanted sutras in her small room, letting the verses echo with the wind outside. Each evening she sat in meditation, her back straight, eyes gently closed, breath slow and steady, with the rhythm of the bell and wooden drum. Outsiders admired her diligence and virtue, but deep within Sayuri still carried an unease she could not name. Many times she went to the abbot, her eyes heavy with sadness, her voice trembling. Master, I have practiced for so many years, yet my mind is still unsettled. The peace that others speak of, I have never truly touched it. Is it because I have no affinity with the way? The master looked at her silently for a long time. His eyes were bright yet gentle like a still lake. Then he smiled softly. Without rushing to answer, he drew from his sleeve an old mirror. The mirror was covered in a thick layer of dust, its surface almost opaque, unable to reflect anything. He placed it in Sayuri's hands and simply said, "Clean this mirror." Sayuri hesitated, puzzled by his words, but obeyed. With a cloth, she began to wipe it gently. A thin layer of dust came off, revealing faint patches of light. She continued wiping. The old, heavy dust slowly fell away, exposing the clear brightness beneath. She wiped and wiped until the mirror shone clearly, reflecting her own face. At that moment, the master spoke slowly, his voice warm yet resonant like a reminder from long ago. "You see, the mirror never lost its brightness. It was only covered by dust, and so you mistook it for being dull. When you wiped away the dust, its light naturally appeared. Your mind is the same. It is originally pure and radiant. Because of defilements and illusions, you fail to recognize it. If you persist in practice, each layer of suffering, greed, and anger will fall away, and the clarity will reveal itself, for it has never left you, not even for a moment." Hearing this, Sayuri stood still. For years, she had doubted herself, thinking she was unworthy of the path. But now, as she gazed into the clear mirror, she realized peace is not something distant, nor is it newly created. It has always been within her heart. She only needed to remove the obscuring dust. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time, they were not tears of despair. They were tears of awakening. In that moment, she felt a deep relief, as though a lifelong burden had been lifted. She placed her palms together and bowed before the master, her heart full of gratitude. From that day on, Sayuri no longer saw practice as a battle to achieve peace. She understood that each time she sat in meditation, she was wiping away another layer of dust on the mirror of her mind. Each mindful breath, each moment of compassion, all were gentle strokes making the mirror shine brighter. And day by day, that mirror would once again reflect her innately radiant nature. Sayuri's story became a quiet reminder. To anyone struggling in confusion, your mind has never lacked light. It is only waiting for you to patiently cleanse it. Think of a glass window. When it is covered in dust, light cannot pass through, and the room inside feels dark. Yet the light outside never disappeared. It was always there. Clean the glass and the room brightens at once. The mind is the same. Wisdom, love, and peace are always present. They are simply hidden by the dust of illusion. Clear away the dust, and the light appears. This story teaches us something profound, yet very close. The human mind is already bright, already complete. There is no need to seek it elsewhere. What we need is not to create enlightenment, but to patiently remove the layers of defilement that obscure it. Like an old mirror covered in dust, we may think it is dull, but in truth, once wiped clean, the brightness is still there. Our mind is the same. It has never lost its clarity, only hidden by greed, anger, and delusion. In life, whenever we feel anger, suspicion, or selfishness, that is dust settling on the mirror of our mind. On the other hand, Whenever we let go, forgive, or give rise to compassion, we are wiping away that dust. Each act of wiping makes the mind shine a little more. The path of practice is not something distant or mysterious. It is this quiet, steady process. How can we practice this each day when the mind is restless instead of blaming yourself? I cannot practice. Well, recall the image of cleaning the mirror. Dust cannot be removed in one stroke. It must be wiped away little by little. Each day you can sit quietly for a few minutes, just to observe your mind. When a thought of greed arises, when a spark of anger flares, see it as a speck of dust. Recognize it, smile, and let it go. That simple act is already one stroke of wiping the mirror. If you are patient over time, you will realize you do not need to chase enlightenment outside yourself. Enlightenment has always been within you. That bright mind is ever present. You need only remove what hides it. The Dharma is not about adding something new, but about returning to what is already there. Like polishing a mirror, it may take time and effort, but with perseverance, the light will surely appear. And then you will see something wondrous. Happiness and peace are not rewards at the end of the path, but present in every moment you wipe away a layer of dust from your heart. Simply live mindfully without chasing illusions, and you will see the mirror of your mind shine naturally. Peace has never left you. The only question is whether you recognize it. The dust-covered mirror reminds us that the mind is always bright. We need only clear away the dust of defilements. But in life, sometimes we are not only obscured by dust, we are also deceived by illusions. Often we cling to reflections in the water, mistaking them for real, until a sudden event shatters everything we hold on to. Let us move on to the next story, No Water, No Moon, where a monk, seeing the moon vanish from a broken bucket of water, realizes the nature of truth, and through that attains awakening. Have you ever noticed that we often cling to things that are only illusions? We hold tightly to fame, wealth, romance, or even a single thought in the mind, believing it to be real. But one day, with just a small event, everything dissolves like the moon in water. Perhaps you have experienced it. A love that seemed unbreakable suddenly falls apart. A dream carefully built collapses in an instant. In that moment, we suffer deeply because we think we have lost the most important thing. Yet in truth, what we were holding was never real. It was like the moon's reflection on water, beautiful, shimmering, but impossible to grasp. The Buddha taught, in what is seen, there is only the seen. In what is heard, there is only the heard. When you stop there, the mind is no longer entangled. This means that when we see things exactly as they are, without adding projections, we are freed from illusion. Today's story shows this through the image of a broken water bucket, leaving a profound lesson about the nature of truth. Long ago, at the foot of a mountain covered in green pines, stood a small temple. In it lived a young nun named Aiko. Since the day she took vows, she lived simply chanting sutras, meditating, tending the vegetable garden, and sweeping the courtyard. Though diligent, Aiko still carried a vague emptiness, as if searching for something she could not name. In the temple grounds, there was an old well. Its water was deep and cool. Each evening after chanting, Aiko would take a bamboo bucket to the well, draw water to wash her face, then sit and watch the moon reflected in the surface. It became a comforting habit. On bright moonlit nights, the moon in the bucket shimmered like a quiet friend who listened to all her feelings. One autumn night, a light wind moved through the bamboo, and a full moon hung high in the sky. Aiko drew a full bucket of water. When the surface stilled, the moon appeared clearly glittering with a mesmerizing light. She sat down, cradling the bucket in her lap, gazing at the moon's reflection for a long time. A gentle softness spread through her heart, easing away the day's fatigue. But just as Aiko stood to walk, the old bamboo bucket gave a small crack. A sudden split appeared and quickly widened. In an instant, the water poured out onto the ground. The bright moon vanished. Startled, Aiko's heart seized. She knelt, lifted the cracked bucket in her hands, and cried out in despair, "Where is my moon?" In that moment, her heart filled with regret. Night after night, she had found solace in the moon upon the water. Now it had vanished because the bucket broke. A sorrow rose in her like losing a dear friend. Aiko rushed to the well's edge and looked up. Right then, her eyes widened in amazement. High in the vast sky, the moon still shone brilliantly whole and unmoving. The moon had never disappeared. Only the bucket had broken, the water had spilled, and the illusion had dissolved. Aiko stood silently for a long time. A flash of clarity lit up her mind. She realized all this time she had been searching for the moon in the bucket, forgetting that the real moon was in the sky, never once leaving. Likewise, we cling to illusions, fame, romance, possessions, and suffer when they fade. Yet truth has never been lost. We simply forget to look up. The young nun smiled, a light, relieved smile. A deep peace arose within. From that day on, Aiko no longer sought the moon in water. She returned to living with the real moon, the radiance of the mind already present within her, not bestowed by anyone and not destroyed by any loss. And so, whenever the moon rose, Aiko no longer held a bucket, but sat quietly under the temple eaves, letting the moonlight bathe the earth and her heart. The moon remained silent, unchanging, like the clear nature of mind she had just discovered. Picture this: a child sees a rainbow and runs to catch it, but never reaches it, because a rainbow is only reflected light. Without understanding, we spend a lifetime chasing what is not real. It is the same with a dream. In a dream, we may cry, laugh, or see ourselves lose everything. But upon waking, we realize nothing was lost, because it was all illusion. The moon in water is the same. It makes us think we can possess it, but only when we let go of the broken bucket do we see that the real moon is still whole in the sky. The story of Aiko and the broken bucket offers a profound lesson. Most suffering in life does not come from truth itself, but from our attachment to what was never real. When we think we have lost something, it is that very thought of loss that causes our pain. In reality, what is lost is only an image. The true thing has never changed. In everyday life, this is clear. When a relationship ends, many collapse believing they have lost everything: love, care, happiness. But if you look deeply, you will see that true love never disappears. It transforms sometimes into a memory, sometimes into a lesson that helps us mature, sometimes into the strength to love ourselves more. Like the moon above, it never vanishes. We were only mistaking the reflection for the real thing. Money, fame, and status are the same. They glitter like the moon in a bucket, making us think that holding them is holding eternity. But one day, when they slip from our grasp, we panic and despair, thinking we have nothing left. In truth, such things were never stable. What truly matters is a peaceful heart, clear insight, and compassion, and these are never lost. When your mind is clear, you carry inner wealth, regardless of outer change. Each day we can practice seeing things exactly as they are without embellishment. When drinking water, simply know this is drinking water. When hearing birds, simply know this is birdsong. Do not attach meanings, judgments, or comparisons. It is the mind's elaboration that creates the illusions which prolong suffering. The Buddha taught one who sees things as they truly are without entanglement attains peace. In practice, you can begin by sitting quietly and following the breath. When thoughts arise, smile and let them go like setting down a broken bucket. There is no need to grasp at reflections in water, because the real moon is always shining above. And when facing loss of a person, a possession, an opportunity, remember that what is lost is only an image. The true thing has never disappeared. Realizing this suffering loses its power, and a vast space of inner freedom opens within you. That is true peace, not dependent on holding on, but born from the ability to let go. Living this way, you will see that happiness is not in what we clutch, but in inner freedom. From that freedom, peace radiates like the real moon, forever hanging in the sky, never fading. The broken bucket made the moon's reflection vanish, so we could recognize the true moon still there. From here, we understand that truth surpasses all forms. Yet sometimes, to touch truth, we must face a paradox. How can we hear the sound of one hand clapping? Let us move on to the next story. The echo of one hand to contemplate a famous koan, where a Zen master guides a student beyond concepts, forcing the mind to transcend reasoning in order to touch the wordless truth. Life often makes us believe that every question must have a clear answer. From childhood, we are used to asking and then receiving answers, searching and then being shown the way. But in Zen, there are questions not meant to provide a logical answer, but to shatter the framework of thought and carry the mind beyond narrow reasoning. In your own life, have you ever been in a situation where the more you search for answers, the more restless you become? You try to explain why you suffer, why others treat you the way they do, why life is unfair. But the more you think, the heavier it feels. Perhaps you are trapped in the very net of your own thoughts. The Buddha taught, in this Dharma, it is not by much thinking that one attains, but by stopping at deluded thoughts that wisdom shines forth. That is why Zen masters often give koans questions that seem nonsensical to force disciples to break free from ordinary logic. Today's story centers on one of the most famous koans, the sound of one hand clapping. It will lead you into a silence beyond words where only truth remains. Long ago in Japan, in an ancient temple nestled in the stillness of the mountains, there was a young monk named Itsuki. He was full of zeal and eager to attain enlightenment. Every day he devoted himself to meditation, reciting sutras, copying the Buddha's teachings, longing for the day when the light of wisdom would open in his heart. One afternoon after meditation, Itsuki approached Zen Master Ryozan, bowed deeply, and said, "Master, I have studied many sutras diligently. I have practiced meditation for many months, yet my mind is still unsettled, never once touching deep tranquility. Please, out of compassion, give me a koan to contemplate." The master silently gazed at Itsuki for a long time, eyes deep, as if seeing into his heart. Then he slowly said, "Then let me hear the sound of one hand clapping." Itsuki was stunned, raising his head in confusion. How can one hand make a sound, he thought. He lifted his hand, tried striking the air, but of course heard nothing but silence. He furrowed his brow, trying to explain. Could the master mean the sound of wind, or the faint vibration of air? He dug through his knowledge, analyzed with reason, but the answer remained unclear. From that day, Itsuki carried the koan in every step. When sitting in meditation, his mind revolved around it. When eating, he thought of it. When sleeping, he tossed and turned, hearing vague echoes in his dreams. He even discussed it with fellow monks, hoping for hints. But the more he searched, the more stuck he became, like a man lost in a maze with no exit. One bright moonlit night, Itsuki strolled under the bamboo near the temple. Autumn wind blew, the leaves rustled like a gentle song. Suddenly, he froze, heart pounding. "Ah, this is it," he cried within. The sound of one hand clapping is the wind through the bamboo leaves. The next morning, excited, Itsuki rushed to the master and shared his discovery. But Master Ryozan only smiled and shook his head. No. Itsuki was shocked, disheartened, but he did not give up. Days later, he thought of another answer, the sound of his heartbeat. He felt certain this must be correct, since the heart is single, and its beat was like the sound of one hand. But when he presented it, the master again shook his head. No. So Itsuki kept searching. Hearing the stream flowing, he thought that was it. Hearing birds at dawn, he thought he found the truth. Hearing his own breath in meditation, he claimed, "This is it." But each time Master Ryozan calmly replied, "No." Months passed. Itsuki was nearly exhausted. He became consumed by the koan, forgetting good meals, losing sleep. Sometimes he grew angry, thinking it was just a meaningless joke. Sometimes he despaired, wanting to quit. Yet even in his deepest fatigue, he could not abandon the question. It clung to him like a shadow, both hated and inescapable. One evening, Itsuki sat alone in the meditation hall. Outside, the wind whispered. The oil lamp flickered. His body was worn out, his mind too tired to think further. He exhaled a long breath, letting go of every effort, every attempt to reason, and just sat, simply sat. In that moment, his mind became still like a lake without ripples. And right then, Itsuki heard it. Not with his ears, but with his whole being. The sound of one hand clapping was not an external sound to analyze or find, but the wordless silence itself, the truth beyond all concepts. The next morning, Itsuki came before the master. This time he did not speak quickly or offer another answer. He simply sat, bowed his head, breathing deeply in calm stillness. Master Ryozan looked at him, smiled gently, and said, "Now you have heard it." From that moment, Itsuki realized some truths cannot be spoken or reached by reasoning, but only lived in the silence of the mind. And in that silence, the path to awakening revealed itself. Imagine someone asks you, "What is the scent of emptiness?" You cannot answer with words. Only when you step into that space and breathe its stillness do you understand. Or like looking at a flower. If you rush to analyze what color, what season, what fragrance, you may miss the beauty. But when you stop analyzing and simply look, only then do you truly see the flower. The sound of one hand clapping is like that, not to be explained, but to help you drop reasoning and return to direct experience. This koan teaches a deep truth. Often, the answer does not come from chasing, but from letting go. In life, we are often trapped in endless questions. Why do I suffer? Why did they treat me this way? Why is life unfair? We exhaust ourselves in reasoning, analyzing, comparing. But the more we think, the more tangled it gets. Sometimes the answer is not in thinking it through, but in the moment the mind stops. The Buddha taught, when the mind stops, wisdom shines. Wisdom is not the product of endless thoughts, but the clarity that appears when we cease chasing, ceasing to grasp. Like a lake, the more it is stirred, the murkier it becomes. When still, the sky reflects clear. In practice, this can be very close to daily life. When your mind is restless, instead of rushing to solve it, try sitting quietly, breathing deeply, letting go of all thoughts. In that silence, clarity will naturally arise. When facing difficulty, instead of spinning endlessly in analysis, try looking directly, living directly with the situation. Sometimes the truth is so simple we miss it by searching for something higher. And each day, you can spend a few minutes practicing hearing the sound of one hand clapping, sitting silently, expecting nothing, just listening to life in each breath, each heartbeat. When you live with this silence, you realize peace is not in a specific answer, but in releasing the need to search. Wisdom is not something you create, but the light already there revealed when the mind rests. The koan of the sound of one hand clapping reminds us that some truths can only be directly realized in silence, not grasped by thought. And in that silence, we begin to hear the wondrous sounds of life, like the wind touching a temple bell, leaving echoes spreading through space. Let us move on to the next story, The Bell in the Wind, to see how some lessons arrive through quiet resonance, bringing the mind back to deep awareness. In today's busy life, we are often shaken by the world's noise. The roar of traffic arguments at home, the complaints in our own minds. All of it creates chaos, making it hard to find calm within. Yet sometimes just a simple sound like a bell ringing in the wind can bring us back to ourselves. Have you ever heard a temple bell ring, and in that moment felt your mind grow still? That sound is not merely metal vibrating. It is a reminder: return to the breath, return to the present. A Zen master once said, "When you hear the bell, you are not only hearing the bell, you are awakening the mindfulness that has been asleep in your heart." Today's story takes you to a mountain temple where a young novice learned a deep lesson from a bell ringing in the wind, and from there found his way back to wakefulness. Long ago, on a mist-covered mountain, there was a small temple, hidden among dark green pines. In the temple lived a young novice named Renji. Everyone praised his diligence. At dawn, he carried water from the well. At noon, he split firewood. In the afternoon, he swept the courtyard. And in the evening, he chanted sutras. His body was busy, but Renji's heart was never truly at ease. Whenever he sat in meditation, he felt his mind like a flood-season stream endlessly churning. Sometimes he missed his parents far away. Sometimes he worried about a hazy future. Sometimes he grew irritated by a senior monk's mild reproach. The harder he tried to push these thoughts away, the more tangled his mind became, as if the more he suppressed them, the fiercer the flames flared. One late autumn afternoon, the air turned chilly and yellow leaves drifted in the wind. Renji entered the meditation hall again. sat cross-legged, and closed his eyes for a deep breath. But after only a few breaths, his mind was already in turmoil. Thoughts arrived in waves, one after another, refusing to relent. Renji clenched his teeth, trying to chase them off, but the more he chased, the tighter they clung. At last, he jumped up and strode outside, his heart heavy as stone. Just then, a light breeze passed through the courtyard. An old bronze bell hanging at the temple gate swayed gently and rang out. The sound lingered, clang, clang. It carried far, clear and pure. It was neither loud nor urgent, as light as mist, yet it pierced straight to the core. Renji stopped in his tracks. His whole body jolted awake. He suddenly forgot his earlier frustration and heard only the bell ringing in the vast space. Strangely, the sound did not just enter his ears. It echoed in his very heart. It was like a wave touching the roots of his being, and the swarm of thoughts that had raged a moment before suddenly fell silent. He stood there motionless. The wind still blew, leaves still fell. The bell still rang. But within him spread an immense quiet. Each clang, clang, blended with the wind, with the trees, with the boundless emptiness of the mountains and forests. Renji no longer wished to think, nor did he need to seek. Simply listening, simply being present in that moment, he found his mind unusually clear. When he returned to his teacher, Renji recounted the experience in a trembling voice. The teacher listened attentively, then smiled gently. You see, the bell does not ring by itself, the wind does not blow by itself, and the mind does not disturb itself. All happens through conditions. When conditions come together, the bell rings. When conditions pass, the bell is silent. Your mind is the same. It does not create turmoil on its own. Only when you cling and chase after wandering thoughts do you feel tangled. If you know how to look directly and listen deeply, you will see that calm has never left you. Renji bowed, his heart bright as if freshly washed. From that day on, whenever he heard the temple bell, he no longer treated it as a familiar sound. For Renji, it became a call to return, a reminder. Breathe, release, let the mind be as quiet as the bell ringing in the wind. And from then on, in every daily task, carrying water, sweeping the courtyard, chanting Renji carried the echo of that autumn afternoon. It was a lesson unwritten in books and untaught by anyone, yet it resonated endlessly within. The mind can be as clear as a bell if we know how to let go and allow it to ring on its own. Imagine, on a sweltering summer day, your throat parched dry. Suddenly, a cool sip of water flows down, soothing both body and mind. The bell in the wind is like that sip. It won't feed you for a lifetime, but it's enough to awaken and refresh you in that moment, or like someone dreaming in sleep. A single soft sound can jolt them awake, revealing it was all a dream. The bell is the same, it adds nothing new, but it reminds us to wake from our fantasies. This story gives us a gentle yet profound reminder. Wakefulness is not something far away, reserved only for sages hidden in high mountains. It can be sparked by the simplest things in daily life. A bell, a breath, a truly seeing gaze, any of these can be a doorway back to ourselves. In modern life, we are easily swept away by countless sounds and images. But if you know how to pause, every sound can become a bell of mindfulness. When your phone rings, instead of rushing to answer, you can take a deep breath and smile. When a car horn blares in traffic instead of getting annoyed, you can take it as a reminder. Stop, return to the breath. Even birdsong in the park or leaves rustling by the porch can be Dharma sounds guiding you home. What matters is not the sound itself, but how we listen. If the mind is agitated, the more you try to drive it away, the stronger it becomes. But if, like the novice Renji, you simply stop and listen quietly, you will see something wondrous happen. The sound will not only ring outside, it will ring within your own heart, reminding you to come back to the present moment. You can also create your own bell. A phone alarm need not only signal a task, it can be a bell of wakefulness whenever it rings. Set everything down for a few seconds, just breathe and smile. A small note on your desk with the word breathe can also serve as a bell that brings you back. The Buddha taught, in true listening, there is no subject and object. There is only life resonating by itself. When you truly listen, there is no longer a me that listens and a sound outside. Only life itself appears clear and boundless. Listening in this way, you are not merely hearing sound, you are hearing life within you. As you practice listening like this each day, you will realize wakefulness is not far away. It is right within the simplest sounds, and from there, you will see that peace is not a destination, but the very path you walk each day. The bell in the wind reminds us that wakefulness can arise from any simple sound, as long as we know how to listen. But there are times when the bell is not enough. Our mind bolts like an unruly horse, dragging us back to the past and charging into the future. How can we tame that wild horse? Let us move on to the next story, The Horse and the Mind, to see that when we learn to hold the reins, that very horse becomes the power that carries us back to freedom. In daily life, our mind is like a wild horse. It can bolt at any moment, sometimes running back to the past with regret, sometimes charging into the future with worry. And in those moments, we lose our calm and lose ourselves. Have you noticed? When you sit down, hoping for peace, the mind suddenly drags you back to yesterday, a quarrel, a mistake, or it pulls you into tomorrow, a worry about money, health, or relationships. The mind keeps running nonstop. The Buddha once said, "No enemy is more dangerous than an untrained mind, but no friend is more precious than a well-trained mind." Indeed, if you know how to hold the reins, the wild horse becomes the strength that carries you far. But if you let it go unchecked, it will drag you into the abyss. That is what today's story seeks to show, how to see the mind through the image of a wild horse, and how to tame it with mindfulness. Long ago, in an old temple in rural Japan, there was a young monk in training named Takumi. He had just left home filled with passion and the wish to one day attain the same stillness as his teacher and the elder monks. Every morning, Takumi sat cross-legged in the meditation hall, closing his eyes, trying to keep his mind still. But the longer he sat, the more he felt his mind was like an untamed animal, remembering the warm home of his parents, imagining the delicious meals he once enjoyed, or flaring up with anger over a careless word from a fellow trainee. The harder he tried to push thoughts away, the more restless his mind became. One autumn afternoon, as the cold wind seeped into the meditation hall, Takumi finally could not endure it anymore. He leapt up, knelt before his teacher and sighed, "Master, I cannot control my mind. It runs wild like a horse. The more I try to hold it, the further it bolts. What should I do? The old Zen master sat silently, his eyes deep like a still lake. After a while, he spoke slowly. Go out and observe the horses in the village. Watch them closely, then come back and tell me what you see. Takumi obeyed and went down to the village at the foot of the mountain. There he came upon a vivid scene. First he saw a horse tied tightly with ropes. It thrashed violently, neighing loudly, its body, twisting its eyes, burning with the desperate desire for freedom. Though the owner held it fast, it looked ready to break free at any moment. Walking farther, Takumi saw another horse the complete opposite. Untied, uncontrolled, it raced wildly across the fields. Hooves thundered, dust flew everywhere, farmers panicked and rushed aside. Children screamed, adults frowned, everyone was unsettled. But then Takumi paused before a third horse. It was strong, its eyes bright, its steps graceful. On its back sat a rider holding the reins firmly but gently, not so tight as to cause pain, not so loose as to lose control. The horse followed the guidance, powerful yet disciplined, not causing trouble, but helping its master carry goods and travel long distances. Returning to the temple, Takumi recounted everything in detail. The master listened, then smiled kindly. You see, the mind is like those horses. If you tie it too tightly, it will resist and thrash about. If you let it loose, it will run wild, bringing harm to yourself and others. But if you hold the reins with mindfulness, steady yet gentle, the mind will become strength, carrying you far on the path of liberation. Takumi was struck silent. His teacher's words felt like a cool breeze blowing through his overheated mind. He suddenly understood that all along he had been mistaken in trying to force his mind into emptiness, thinking that was meditation. Too much force only provoked resistance. But letting the mind roam freely left him lost in delusion. From that day on, each time he sat, Takumi no longer struggled to chase thoughts away. He focused on his breath, like a rider holding the reins just right. When the mind wandered, he gently brought it back with a slow breath, without anger or hurry. And strangely, over time, his mind became like a horse, tamed, still full of power, but now an ally instead of an enemy. On moonlit nights, as the temple bell rang across the mountains and forests, Takumi sat still, breathing slowly, feeling his mind steady like a quiet river. He knew he had learned how to hold the reins of his own mind, not too tight, not too loose, but guiding it with mindfulness. From then on, Takumi's path grew more stable, and whenever he saw a horse running across the fields, he smiled, remembering his teacher's words. The mind, too, if trained, will carry us toward freedom. Imagine a kite flying in the sky. If the string is pulled too tight, it might snap. If completely released, it drifts away. But if held just right, the kite soars beautifully while staying within reach. The mind is the same. Do not crush it. Do not abandon it. Hold it with just enough mindfulness so it functions without losing direction. Or think of a child. If you scold harshly, the child rebels. If you neglect them, they act out. But if you guide with patience and care, the child grows well. This story reminds us of a simple truth, often forgotten. The mind is not our enemy. It is a tool, sometimes wild like a colt, sometimes strong like a warhorse, but always in need of guidance. We suffer because we treat the mind as an obstacle, either suppressing it or letting it run loose. But in reality, the mind only needs training and direction. In daily life, you can see this clearly. While meditating, some grow restless when thoughts surge like waves. They try to force them away, but the harder they push, the more chaotic it becomes. It is like tying down a wild horse, it only struggles harder. The right way is not to force, but to notice the mind is running. See it running? Then gently guide it back to the breath, like holding the reins firmly, but not harshly. When anger arises, many either suppress it or explode. Suppression is like locking a horse in a stall. It grows even more destructive. Indulging is like letting the horse run wild. It harms both you and others. Proper practice is like a skilled rider keeping the mind in balance, neither racing nor suffocating, but slowly returning it to the present. A deep breath, a mindful step can become the reins that tame your anger. When worrying about the future, the mind often wanders into what has not yet come, creating imagined scenes of fear. But the future has not arrived. It is only a shadow of thought. At that moment, pull the mind back to the present with something tangible. Touch the table in front of you. Listen to the birds outside, or simply take a deep breath. This is how you remind the mind. Be here now. The Buddha taught, a trained mind brings great happiness. This means that when we learn to tame the horse of the mind, we are no longer dragged around by it. Instead, we ride it, and it becomes the vehicle that carries us to peace, wisdom, and freedom. The mind, when trained, is no longer a burden, but the wings that lift us beyond suffering. You see, the task is not to destroy the mind, nor to let it run uncontrolled, but to befriend it, train it, and walk with it toward the light. Then your life itself will grow more steady and free than ever before. The horse and the mind remind us, if we know how to hold the reins, the mind becomes our companion, no longer a source of suffering. Yet sometimes we still feel lonely, like a single drop of water cut off from the whole. We forget that our mind truly belongs to a vast ocean of life. The next story, The Fish and the Ocean, shows us that we are never truly alone. Our very nature is part of the whole, like a drop of water that never leaves the sea. Many times in life we feel lost and alone, like a separate fragment of existence. We think we must face suffering by ourselves, carry the burden alone through every storm. It is precisely this sense of separation that makes us suffer more. Have you ever asked, why do I feel lonely when I still have family, friends, and a whole world living alongside me? In truth, loneliness largely comes from a mistaken perception, from forgetting that we have never been separate from boundless life. The Buddha taught, when this is, that is. When this is not, that is not. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. This is the teaching of dependent origination, reminding us that all things are intimately connected. Nothing exists independently. Today's story about a little fish searching for the ocean will help you see that we don't need to look far for wholeness, because our very nature already belongs to the vast ocean of life. Long ago, in a small river bend in a peaceful countryside, there was a little fish named Kauru. From birth, Kauru was used to the cool, fresh water winding past bamboo groves and rice roots. He swam happily with other young fish, never imagining there might be a world beyond this stretch of river. One afternoon, as golden sunlight spread across the water's surface, Kauru heard the older fish talking. Their voices were both mysterious and solemn. Do you know out there is a great place called the ocean? It is boundless, without shores, impossible for anyone to measure. Kauru's eyes widened, and an unfamiliar curiosity rose within him. He swam closer and asked, "What is the ocean? Where is it? Is it truly as vast as you say?" The older fish burst out, laughing, their eyes a mix of pity and teasing. "You're too young to understand. Just keep swimming here, and when you grow up, you'll know." Those words did not soothe Kauru. Instead, they kindled a flame. From that day on, Kauru carried a fierce longing. I must find the ocean. So he began his journey. Kauru swam upstream, squeezing through narrow stretches choked with algae, where the current rushed so hard it was suffocating. He swam downstream across fields and foaming rapids, sometimes spun to exhaustion. Many times he felt close to collapse, but the thought of the ocean, like a promised land, kept him going. Days passed as Kauru swam and swam, but still no ocean, only other rivers wider and longer, yet still not boundless in his heart. Tired, Kauru's faith began to waver. One day, he sighed to an old fish gliding calmly nearby, as if nothing in the world could disturb it. "I've swum everywhere upstream, downstream through long stretches of river, but I still can't find what they call the ocean. I'm starting to think maybe the ocean is made up." Hearing this, the old fish laughed, a gentle laugh like a breeze on the water. "Little one, the ocean isn't a place waiting for you to arrive. Right now, you are already in the ocean. This very water from your first breath until now has been holding and nourishing you. That is the ocean." Kauru fell silent. A ray of bright light seemed to flash through his heart. All fatigue and disappointment dissolved. He realized that all this time, he had been searching for something that had never left him. The ocean was not some far-off destination, but the vast environment he was living in every moment. Because of his narrow view, he thought he was lacking. But in truth, the ocean had always been here, immeasurably vast. From that moment, Kauru changed completely. He no longer rushed about in vain. Instead, he swam leisurely, enjoying each current, each wave lapping around him. He felt grateful for every drop of water supporting his small body, and with each breath, Kauru whispered, "I don't need to search for the ocean anymore, because I have always belonged to it." From then on, the little fish lived with a new happiness, a happiness born of a simple realization: what we seek has always been right here within us. Picture this: someone sits in a forest, breathing fresh air, yet asks, "Where's the air? I must go find it." Every breath is already proof that the air has never left them, or like a drop of water so fixated on finding the sea that it grows anxious and afraid, thinking itself alone. The drop forgets that it has always been part of the ocean, never separate. The story of the fish is our own image, always searching for happiness and wholeness, forgetting that within life itself, we already belong to the whole. The story of little Kauru opens a deep insight. We have never left the ocean of life. What we call loneliness is only an illusion the mind creates when we forget the truth of non-self and interbeing. In fact, from the moment we cried at birth until now, life has been holding us, supporting every breath and every step. In daily life, whenever you feel lost, you can pause and contemplate you are breathing the same air as millions across the planet. Each sip of water you drink has been a cloud. A river has flowed through mountains and forests and has passed through the bodies of countless beings. Simply realizing this, you will see you are not separate. When you feel small, remember a single drop can reflect the whole sky. A fragile leaf holds the energy of the sun, earth, and rain. You are the same within your body, and mind are the presence of the entire cosmos. Every cell is the cooperation of countless conditions. Realizing this, you will no longer see yourself as a lone grain of sand, but as part of the boundless sea. And when anxiety over loss arises, reflect on this. What we lose is only a temporary form. Like water evaporating into cloud and returning as rain, life only changes form. It never vanishes. Those we love may leave this body, but love, memory, and continuation remain. They do not disappear. The Buddha taught, whoever sees dependent origination sees the Dharma. Whoever sees the Dharma sees the Tathagata. Dependent origination means that all things are wondrously connected. Nothing exists alone. Seeing this, loneliness dissolves at once, replaced by a sense of safety, support, and spaciousness, like the open sky. In practice, you can begin with simple things. Each morning when you lift a cup of water, pause and silently say, "In this sip are clouds, sky, mountains, and forests, and the life that nourishes me." When walking, feel the solid earth supporting every step, and know you are always being held. When breathing, know that each breath connects you with the whole world, one rhythm, one stream of life. Practicing this way, you will see that what we call loneliness is only a passing cloud, while the truth is that you have never been separate from the ocean of life. In that understanding, a deep, quiet joy naturally spreads within you. The story of the fish and the ocean reminds us that happiness, wholeness, and belonging have never been lost. We need only open our eyes and hearts to see we are living in the ocean of life. Yet there are times when even knowing all is like a dream, we are still swept away by it. So how do we awaken from that dream and see the truth? Let us move on to the next story, The Pillow of Dreams, to discover that sometimes just a single moment of wakefulness is enough to change the way we see our entire life. This life often feels like a dream. We may live for decades chasing fame, power, love, wealth. But in the end, we suddenly realize everything is fragile, fleeting, like passing clouds. Have you ever felt this? A joy you thought would last forever, but it faded quickly. A suffering you thought would never end, but it too dissolved. So then, what we cling to, does it truly exist forever? The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a dewdrop, a flash of lightning. This means every success and failure, every sorrow and joy is impermanent, never solid. When we understand this, we cling less, suffer less, and learn to live fully in each moment we have. Long ago, in a poor countryside, there was a young man named Haruto. Since childhood, Haruto was used to hardship meals of wild greens and salt, a patched shirt barely covering his body. Every day he worked in the fields under the burning sun and pouring rain, yet earned just enough to survive. Still in his heart, Haruto carried a burning desire one day. He would escape this misery, live in wealth and power, admired by all. One scorching summer noon, Haruto collapsed from exhaustion after long hours of labor. He dragged himself to a roadside inn. The innkeeper took pity and gave him a steaming bowl of rice and an old straw pillow. "Rest your head here, young man. No one travels far in this heat." Haruto ate quickly, then lay down his head against the rough pillow. Soon, he fell into a deep sleep, and at that moment, a strange dream began. In the dream, Haruto wore a silk robe, a dignified official's hat upon his head. He had become a great minister, his power resounding throughout the land. A grand mansion lay before him, long corridors echoing with the wind servants bowing low. His wife was a beautiful and virtuous lady, his children obedient, his wealth piled high, gold and silver like mountains. People in the region both feared and admired him. At the mention of his name, all lowered their heads. Years passed in the dream. Haruto lived the life he had always desired, authority in hand, endless riches surrounded by glory and respect. He believed at last fate had smiled upon him. But even in dreams, life is not only bright. One day, invaders stormed in. Drums thundered, swords flashed, and the strong fortress quickly fell. His entire fortune turned to ash. His wife and children, scattered relatives, lost his mansion, burned to the ground. Haruto was captured, dragged away to a dark, cold land in exile. There he tasted every suffering, hunger, humiliation, despair. He sighed and cursed fate, thinking, "So this is what wealth and glory amount to. In the end, I cannot escape suffering." At that moment, a rooster crowed in the distance. Haruto jolted awake. He opened his eyes. He was still in the poor inn, head on the straw pillow, the rice bowl beside him still warm. Outside, dawn had just broken, sunlight spread across the sky, birds chirped on the branches. He sat up, heart pounding. All the splendor, all the anguish, it had only been a dream. Haruto sat in silence, then suddenly exhaled in relief. A clarity rose within him. Life itself is no different from that dream, fleeting, fragile, appearing and vanishing. From then on, Haruto no longer poured his heart into empty fantasies. He looked at the hot bowl of rice, smelled the dry straw on the pillow, heard the birds singing under the blue sky, and smiled. The present moment, simple and real, was the true treasure. Dreams, whether beautiful or painful, were only like drifting clouds. With this new vision, Haruto stepped out of the inn, his heart light, as if he had awakened from a long dream. You can imagine someone watching a movie, laughing and crying with the characters. But when the lights come on, they realize it was only images on a screen. Or someone in a dream. They may be a king or a beggar, but when they wake, it all vanishes. Our life, seen through impermanence, is the same. The story. The Pillow of Dreams is not just an old tale, but a mirror reflecting human life. It reminds us all wealth, power, success, and failure, joy and sorrow are like fleeting dreams. In the dream, we may laugh or weep, feel bliss or deep pain, but when we awaken, all dissolves as if it never existed. Life is the same. If we cling, we remain trapped in impermanence. But if we awaken, we find freedom in the present. In daily life, when facing failure, many let it chain them with regret and pain. But if we see failure as a dream, we understand it is not the end. It is only a brief moment in the long flow of life. Today's failure will fade like morning dew, and we can begin again, lighter and wiser. On the other hand, when success comes, people often cling to glory as if it will last forever. But success, too, is just another dream, fragile, passing quickly. Knowing this, we avoid arrogance and the endless cycle of winning and losing. We can enjoy success without being blinded by it. Suffering is the same. When loss, illness, or separation strikes, we feel the world collapse. But look deeply, suffering too is like a dream that fades. It is not fixed, not eternal. It comes, it goes. This view gives us strength to pass through storms with a calm heart. The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, dewdrops, flashes of lightning. When we see life as a dream, we are no longer trapped in illusions, not in despair at loss, nor in pride at gain. And when we awaken from the dream, we taste freedom. The most practical thing we can do is return to the breath, the one truth alive in the present. Each inhale tells us we are alive. Each exhale calms the mind. The breath is not a dream, but reality here and now. If we rest in the breath in the present, then success, failure, suffering, and joy are only passing clouds. So each day, practice mindfulness in each step, each breath, each smile. Do not let life's dreams bind you, for as the deep reminder says, whoever sees life as a dream awakens. Whoever awakens is free. The pillow of dreams shows us impermanence. Glory and tragedy vanish like an afternoon nap. But if life is a dream, where is the light that truly guides us? When our mind is lost in darkness, how do we find the way? Let us move on to the next story. The lamp in the dark room. To see that even a small light can drive away the night, and wisdom is the same once lit. It can free us from ignorance. Have you ever felt that your life is like a dark room, dark with anxiety, with doubt, with anger, or with the grip of loneliness? When our mind falls into that darkness, we stumble easily, fear easily, and lose our sense of direction. But do you realize that with just a single small ray of light, the darkness immediately recedes? The Buddha taught, in the dark of night, even a small lamp can light the way for 100 people. Darkness does not need to be fought. Simply light the lamp of wisdom, and it will naturally fade. Likewise, suffering does not need to be destroyed. With mindfulness and understanding, it is transformed. The story of a lamp in a dark room helps us see this clearly. Wisdom need not be as great as the sun. It can be as small as a lamp. Yet when lit at the right moment, it can free us from ignorance. Long ago on a high mountain, there was a small temple hidden deep in the forest. In that temple lived a young monk named Ryota. Since ordaining, Ryota was known for his diligence. He never shunned hard work and studied day and night. Yet strangely, though his body was industrious, his heart was often uneasy. Whenever he held a sutra, the words seemed to dissolve before his eyes. Whenever he sat in meditation, his mind turned murky, blanketed by worry and confusion, like a heavy fog. One night, under a thin crescent moon, the wind cutting cold through the pines, Ryota's teacher called him over and gave him a strange task. Tonight, go into the empty room behind the temple. It has no windows and not a single ray of light. Sit there until dawn. Hearing this, Ryota's heart wavered. Darkness had always made him uneasy. Each time he sank into the night, he remembered nameless fears and the emptiness in his heart. But out of respect, he bowed and obeyed. When the wooden door closed, thick darkness fell. The space was dense, as if it would swallow him whole. Ryota sat down, but immediately heard his heartbeat pounding his breath, quickening in fear. He closed his eyes and chanted, hoping the verses would dissolve his anxiety. But the more he chanted, the heavier the inner darkness grew. Each line fell into an endless void, never touching his heart. He felt small and alone in the empty black. Time crawled by. Ryota began imagining all sorts of things, footsteps whined howling like a ghost's breath. He felt fear like 1,000 snakes coiling around his heart. Sweat broke out. His hands trembled. Just as he was about to give up, a faint sound came creak. The door opened a crack. From outside, a weak beam of light spilled in, tearing through the thick dark. His teacher stepped in, carrying a small oil lamp. The flame flickered warm and gentle, and it lit the whole room. The darkness that had seemed so dense immediately retreated, vanishing as if it had never been. Setting down the lamp, the teacher looked at Ryota and smiled kindly. You see, this room had been filled with darkness for so long, so dense you thought it could not be dispelled. Yet a single small lamp made it disappear. Your mind is the same. Fear, confusion, ignorance, they seem to cover everything, but with just one spark of wisdom and mindfulness, all of it dissolves. Ryota sat still, eyes brimming with tears. He suddenly understood the problem was not the darkness. Darkness has no substance of its own. It is only the absence of light. The problem was that he did not know how to light the lamp within his own mind. That night, Ryota remained in the room, but he was no longer afraid. The small lamp became a symbol. If he nurtured mindfulness and wisdom, then no matter how thick ignorance might be, it could never imprison him forever. From then on, whenever his mind grew murky, Ryota remembered that moment. He no longer ran from the inner dark, but quietly lit the lamp of mindfulness, with the breath, with awareness in each step. And each time he realized darkness has never truly defeated light. Imagine walking at night with a small flashlight. It doesn't illuminate the entire road, but it makes each step ahead clear. Because of it, you can keep moving forward without fear of getting lost. Life is the same. We don't need to know everything in advance, nor banish all the darkness of the universe. With just a little light of mindfulness in the heart, we can pass through suffering in this very moment. The story. The lamp in the dark room reminds us of a simple yet profound truth. Darkness has no separate existence. It appears only when light is absent. Likewise, ignorance has no real power. It is not an independent enemy, but merely the space where wisdom has not yet been lit. Therefore, instead of fearing or fighting the darkness in our mind, we need only light a small lamp, the lamp of mindfulness, of compassion, of understanding, and ignorance will vanish as if it never was. In daily life, this practice is not distant. When your mind is full of anxiety, don't resist it or blame yourself for not being calm. The more you struggle, the stronger the anxiety grows. Instead, pause, take a deep breath, and ask, what light can I kindle right now? Sometimes it is just a mindful breath reminding yourself that everything changes. Sometimes it is a small letting go, releasing the need to control everything, simply relaxing your shoulders. In that act, the light is already lit. When anger flares, we often want to fight it or suppress it. But anger is like darkness. If you try to battle it, you only exhaust yourself. Instead, light the lamp of understanding. Remind yourself that the other person is also suffering, that their words are expressions of their own insecurity. When that light appears, anger melts like dew in the sun without force. And when loneliness closes in, you can kindle another flame, the flame of loving kindness. A single kind act A simple wish of well-being for someone else can warm your own heart like striking a match on a winter night. The Buddha taught, with even a single spark of wisdom, darkness of 1,000 years is dispelled. This means you need not wait for a blazing sun to banish ignorance. Begin with a small lamp in your own heart, a breath, a moment of compassion, a seeing that understands, and your inner world will change. When you know how to return and light that lamp, you will no longer fear the dark. You will understand that darkness has never truly overcome light. And in each mindful moment, you become a lamp bearer, illuminating yourself and those around you. You see, a single small lamp can transform an entire dark room. Yet sometimes that small light leads people to believe they have seen it all. Some, after tasting a little Dharma joy, think they have already attained the way. What happens when we become complacent on the path? And how do we distinguish genuine awakening from illusions built by the ego? Let us move on to the next story. The teacher, who thought he was enlightened, to see the subtlety of the spiritual journey, and to learn how to keep our mind humble and open. On the path of practice, there is an invisible trap that few can avoid. It is when we taste a little peace, a little awakening, and immediately think we have attained enlightenment, that we have reached the final goal. But in truth, the pride of that moment is itself the wall that blocks us from the genuine path. In life, it is the same sometimes when we learn just a little. We quickly see ourselves as knowledgeable. Sometimes after a single success, we grow arrogant, forgetting that life still holds many challenges. This is the trap of the ego, always wanting to pin on us a title, a position, a confirmation of self. The Buddha once reminded, the self grows only when we think we already know enough. And he also taught, the path of enlightenment has no end. Whoever believes they have reached its ultimate point is in fact still far away. Today's story will help you see clearly. Humility is the key that opens wisdom, while pride is the trap that imprisons the spirit. Long ago in an ancient mountain temple, there was a young monk named Master Riku. He was known for his diligence chanting sutras day and night, meditating deeply and studying scriptures with great intensity. For many months in retreat, Riku lived in perfect silence, nearly cut off from the world. One morning at dawn, as the first light spread across the sky, Riku sat quietly on his cushion, when suddenly a strange radiance flooded his mind. His body felt weightless, his mind completely clear, his heart overflowing with bliss he had never known. In that instant, Riku was certain, this is the enlightenment realized by the Buddhas. From that day, Riku changed. He began to look at the disciples with a different gaze, half pity, half pride. When asked about the Dharma, he often answered curtly with a tone laced with disdain. You do not see because you have not reached the level I have. The rumor quickly spread through the region. People flocked to the temple to hear the living Buddha teach. Riku was praised, bowed to admired, and so arrogance grew in his heart like a fire smoldering quietly. One day, an experienced Zen master came by. He sat listening to Riku's sermon for a while, then simply smiled. Slowly, he asked, "Teacher, you say you are enlightened. Then may I ask, after enlightenment, does one still feel hunger and thirst?" Riku was surprised, but quickly answered, "Of course people must still eat and drink, but the mind is freed, no longer bound." The old master nodded, then asked, "And when anger arises, do you still feel its fire burning inside? The question made Riku hesitate. But not wanting to reveal weakness, he replied, "Yes, but I have overcome it." The elder monk was silent for a long while, then gently said, "If there is still hunger, still anger, still suffering, then your enlightenment is only like a beautiful dream. When you wake, everything is just as before." The words struck like lightning. In that moment, Riku was stunned, his body trembling. He looked deeply into himself, and for the first time realized what he had been so proud of was only a fleeting experience, not ultimate wisdom. What he thought was liberation was only an illusion woven by temporary bliss. Tears welled up. Riku bowed low before the old master and whispered with a choked voice, "I was mistaken." From that day, Riku began again. He no longer claimed attainment, no longer looked at others with pride. Instead, he practiced with humility, treating each day on the path as a fresh lesson. And from releasing arrogance, he truly began the first steps of genuine awakening. Imagine a student who has just learned the alphabet but thinks himself a sage. Yet knowledge is vast as the ocean, and the alphabet is only the first step. If he stops there, how can he ever read the wisdom of the sages or picture someone climbing a mountain? Midway up, he looks down and sees himself higher than many below. He grows proud, thinking he has reached the summit. But when he looks upward, he sees the true peak still towering above. So it is with the spiritual path. The first taste of Dharma joy is not the destination, but only a sign we are moving in the right direction. The story. The teacher who thought he was enlightened offers a deep lesson. Pride is the greatest enemy of practice. When the mind tastes a little bliss, it easily mistakes it for the shore of enlightenment. But truly, it is only a small rest stop along the long road, a flicker of light, not the blazing sun. If we stop there, we remain trapped in our own illusion. In daily life, this shows up clearly. After doing a single good deed, many rush to tell others, seeking praise. But think if goodness needs witnesses, applause, is it still pure, true virtue? Is like a flower blooming in the deep forest. Even unseen, it still releases fragrance. When we keep our heart quiet, compassion becomes true strength. In meditation, perhaps one day, we feel sudden peace, body and mind light and free. Many immediately think I have awakened, but that peace is like a wildflower by the roadside, lovely, fragile, temporary. If we sit gazing at it forever, we will never walk on to discover the vast forest beyond. Enlightenment is not a passing feeling, but enduring wisdom beyond illusion. Even in worldly work, when success comes, the ego is quick to inflate. With others' praise, we start to believe we are special or superior. But the Dharma teaches today's success can be tomorrow's cause of failure if humility is forgotten. The truly wise are not fooled by fame. They remind themselves, "There is still much I do not know much to learn." The Buddha taught, "The wise are those who know they do not know." This attitude keeps the heart humble, not locked in the illusion of having reached the peak, and so the doors of learning and awakening remain open. Only when we let go of pride do we truly walk the endless path. Each step is a new beginning, and in humility, wisdom and compassion can grow, leading us to genuine peace. Pride is like an invisible wall making us believe we have reached the goal, while the road still stretches far ahead. When we lower ourselves, we truly move forward. And now, let us step into the next story, The burden of the world. This story will show that not only pride, but also the habit of carrying too much of holding on to every responsibility can exhaust the heart. How can we live responsibly while knowing when to let go? That is what we will explore together. Have you ever felt as if the whole world was pressing down on your shoulders, work piling up family worries, friends asking for help, society's expectations? You walk through life feeling as though you are carrying a great stone pack, heavy and exhausting. That suffering does not come only from outer circumstances, but also from within, because we believe we must carry it all, that we must control, must rescue, must make everything perfect. But is there anyone in this world truly strong enough to carry it all? The Buddha once said, "No one can carry another's suffering just as no one can bear another's karma." Each person walks their own path. This teaching reminds us that compassion does not mean taking on everything, and responsibility does not mean bearing every burden ourselves. Today's story, The Burden of the World, will show you that when we lay down some of the weight, we are not being irresponsible, but opening freedom for ourselves and for others. Long ago, in a small temple tucked into the mountainside, there was a teacher named Monshu. He was known not only for his dedicated practice, but for his vast compassion. People believed that anyone who came to the temple and poured out their troubles to him would find comfort and guidance, and so Monshu's temple was always crowded with visitors. One day, after a great storm had ruined the crops, a group of thin farmers came. They knelt before him, their voices trembling. "Please save us, teacher. The fields are ruined, our families have nothing left to eat. We cannot survive." On another day, merchants came worried and distressed. "Please pray for our business to prosper. Our goods do not sell, debts pile high, we are suffering." Then came quarreling couples, mothers weeping over rebellious children, neighbors complaining about disputes. Everyone wanted Monshu to intervene to solve their problems. At first, Monshu gave all his heart to helping. He listened to each story, patiently counseled, carefully prayed night and day. But over time, more and more people came, and the suffering he heard only grew. At night he could not sleep. In his mind echoed the cries and pleas. His compassion made him ache for them, but his body grew exhausted. He felt as if the whole world were pressing down on his frail shoulders. One night, worn out, Monshu fell asleep and dreamed a strange dream. He saw himself walking down a misty road, a giant pack on his back. But inside were not rice or stones, they were people's cries, their tears, their anger and resentment. The pack grew so heavy he could no longer move. Each breath was strangled. At last he collapsed by the roadside, ready to give up. In that moment, an old Zen master appeared and came near. His deep, warm voice asked, "What are you carrying on your back?" Monshu whispered, drenched in sweat. "I am carrying everyone's suffering. I want to bear it for them." The master looked at him a long time with kind but steady eyes. "Do you love them?" "Yes, I do." Monshu nodded, eyes wet. "If you truly love them, let them carry their own share. You cannot take away another's karma. Your task is not to stuff all suffering into your heart, but to light the path. Show them the way. Their steps must be their own. If you try to hold it all, not only will you collapse, but you will lose the strength to shine for anyone." With those words, Manchu awoke from the dream. He opened his eyes to find himself still in his small room, a flickering oil lamp by the window. His heart beat fast, his clothes soaked with sweat. But inside, a deep lightness arose. He understood compassion does not mean caring for others, it means guiding them. From that day, Manchu lived differently. He still listened, still opened his heart, but no longer held everyone's pain inside. When people came, he gently pointed out the path, reminding them they must walk it themselves. He was no longer drained, but clearer, stronger. People continued to visit, but now they left not only with advice, but with the faith that they themselves could cross their suffering. Word of Manchu spread widely. People remembered him not as a teacher who carried everything, but as a lamp in the night, lighting the way so anyone could find their own path. And in that moment, Manchu realized that true compassion is not about bearing for others, but giving them the faith to rise on their own. Imagine someone standing at a riverbank watching people sink. He jumps in, trying to pull each one to shore. If there are one or two, perhaps he can succeed. But if dozens or hundreds fall in, he will surely drown. But if instead he builds a bridge and shows them the way, then no matter how many there are, they can all cross. The bridge builder does not carry everyone, but helps far more. Wise compassion is like building a bridge, not clutching every burden, but offering light so others can walk. The story of Manchu reminds us of a simple truth. Compassion does not mean stuffing others' suffering into our hearts, but helping them see the road ahead. If we try to carry it all, we soon collapse. And when we are no longer steady, we can help no one. In daily life, this is clear. Your children, when facing hardship, may complain, blame, or plead. Parental love makes us want to fix everything, clear every obstacle. But if we always do this, we steal their chance to grow. True love is showing them how to rise, how to learn from failure, not turning them into dependence forever. With friends, it is the same. When they suffer, the greatest gift you can offer is not to take their pain home and dwell on it day and night, but to listen with sincerity, to understand, and to remind them gently, you have the strength to get through this. Sometimes a hand held or a look of trust is stronger than 100 solutions. With society, too. You may see injustice, suffering, wars, disasters, and wish to carry them all. But no one can change the whole world in a day. Instead, begin with one small act, a kind word, a good deed, a wise choice. The great world changes through such small seeds. The Buddha taught, the one who sets down the burden is the one who finds the path to freedom. Laying down burdens does not mean turning away or neglecting. On the contrary, it keeps us clear and enduring. Only a light heart can shine long. Only a steady soul can walk with others without falling. So remember, compassion is not carrying but illuminating. You cannot walk for others, but you can be the lamp that shows the way. And in doing so, you help them and preserve yourself. That is complete compassion. When we take on the whole world's weight, we only collapse. But when we learn to set some down, we become lighter, clearer, and strong enough to walk alongside others. And now, let us step into the next story. 3 knocks and a deeper look. This tale will reveal another lesson that often just one shift in perspective, one moment of deeper attention can change the whole world. There are times in life when we look at things with a hurried eye, then rush to conclusions and react impulsively. But when we calmly observe, we see everything differently. How many times have you misunderstood a loved one just because you heard only half the story? How many times have you gotten angry at someone only to regret it later when you realized you saw only the surface and not the deeper layers within? The Buddha taught, do not believe just because you hear. Do not believe just because you see. Contemplate and experience, then you will know what is true. He meant that wisdom does not come from a superficial glance, but from a deep look that understands the essence. The story, 3 Knocks and a Deeper Look, brings us back to this lesson in life. Sometimes we must listen one more time and look one level deeper for the truth to reveal itself. In an ancient temple set in a remote countryside, surrounded by silent mountains, lived an old Zen master known for profound wisdom and great compassion. Under his guidance, many young disciples diligently studied the Dharma, meditated, swept the courtyard, hauled water, and chopped wood. Life flowed gently like the stream around the mountain, as if nothing could disturb it. One autumn night, wind whistled through the trees, and the sky was pitch black. When the temple had fallen quiet, 3 clear knocks suddenly sounded on the thick wooden door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the night, startling the disciples reciting sutras. They looked at one another tense. One whispered, "It must be a thief testing the door." Another objected, "No, maybe a troublemaker trying to stir things up." A more hot-tempered disciple declared, "Absolutely, do not open it. There could be danger outside. If we open it, the whole temple could be in trouble." Whispers spread. Fear blew through them like a cold wind. They hurried to the master, hoping he would decide. The old master listened and sat silently for a moment. A knowing light shone in his gentle eyes. In a calm voice, he said, "Before deciding, open your eyes, your ears, and your heart." The disciples were puzzled, not fully grasping his meaning, as the master slowly rose and walked to the door. While the others still trembled, the old master quietly pushed the wooden door. It creaked open. Light from the temple's oil lamp spilled out, revealing a thin, weary figure, a traveler in tattered clothes, gaunt face, body, shaking from the mountain night's cold. He bowed and spoke weakly. "I lost my way in the forest darkness all around with nowhere to shelter. Please have mercy and let me stay the night." Hearing this, the disciples felt as if they'd been slapped awake. All their earlier guesses suddenly seemed shameful. They lowered their heads, ears burning. If they had judged by 3 knocks and shut the door, they would have left a suffering person out in the cold. The master looked at them and smiled kindly. "Remember, a knock does not always signal danger. Sometimes it is the call of compassion. If we see only with eyes full of suspicion, we will miss the chance to open the door of our heart." That night, the temple became a warm refuge for the stranger, and in the disciples' hearts a deep lesson was etched. Fear often makes us close up, while compassion opens a door, not only for others, but for ourselves. Think of a clear lake. When the wind blows, the surface ripples and your reflection looks distorted. But if you wait for the water to settle and look carefully, you can see the bottom. So too in life, when our mind is agitated, our view is rushed and distorted. Only when we become still and observe patiently do we see the truth. Or like reading a book, if you skim only the title and rush to judge, you'll never understand the content. Life is the same to understand it rightly. We must read more deeply, not stop at the cover. 3. Knocks and a deeper look reveals a simple truth. What we hear and see at first is often just the outer shell. We humans are easily driven by the habit of snap judgments. We hear a sound, a sentence, or see an action, and instantly assign it meaning through our own subjective lens. But truth is far more complex. Behind outward appearances lie deeper layers of feelings, circumstances, and suffering. If we stop at the surface, we fall into error and feed fear, anger, and division. You can see this clearly in daily life. When someone speaks harshly, our instinct is to flare up and fire back. But if you pause, take a deep breath, and ask, what suffering lies behind these words? You may realize the person is exhausted, helpless, or carrying an unhealed wound. What you hear is not only hurtful words, but an indirect cry for help from a hurting heart. Seeing this anger gives way to compassion, or when something sudden happens, a misunderstanding, an incident, a betrayal. If you look only at the appearance, it seems unforgivable and infuriating. But if you calm down and observe carefully, you'll see the event arose from many intertwined causes and conditions, not only from others, but also from yourself, each with its own roots. Seeing this way, you stop blind blaming and learn to understand and let go. Even with yourself, it is the same. When suffering rises, we usually see only the surface: loneliness, failure, loss. But if you bravely ask, what is the root of this suffering? What is it here to teach me? Then suffering becomes a doorway to wisdom. You may realize the sadness came from clinging too tightly, or you may understand that loss is a reminder of impermanence. Seeing the essence, suffering ceases to be an enemy and becomes a teacher. The Buddha taught, the wise do not stop at appearances, they see the essence. This way of seeing is the key to liberation. If we cling to appearances, we remain trapped in the loop of misunderstanding, fear, and anger. But if we practice deep looking, every situation becomes a chance to open wisdom, nurture compassion, and lighten the heart. When you train yourself to listen with your whole heart and observe with compassionate eyes, the world changes. The knock at the door is no longer just a threat. It may be a cry for help. A harsh word is not only an insult, it is a sign of a hurting soul. Even your own suffering is not just misfortune. It is an opportunity to grow. 3 knocks can stir up all kinds of speculation. But when we open our heart, we discover the truth was a person in need. This lesson also reminds us that outer power and status are not the measure of truth. Sometimes behind the glitter lies a lesson in humility and sincerity. And now, let us move on to the next story, the governor's visit. This story will show that even the most powerful people sometimes must learn humility before the truth of the Dharma. In life, many people mistakenly believe that status, power, or wealth are signs of true nobility. But the further we walk on the spiritual path, the more we realize real value does not come from appearances, but from humility, from a heart that knows how to let go and return to peace. Have you ever seen a powerful, wealthy person full of inner restlessness, while a poor farmer radiates deep peace? Why is that? Because peace cannot be bought with power. It can only be found in a mind that has become still. The Buddha once taught, even if you rule the world, if you cannot master yourself, you are still a slave to ignorance. This leads us into today's story, when a mighty governor came to a Zen master only to discover the truth about the real worth of a human being. At that time, in a vast province of Japan, all authority rested in the hands of Governor Lord Hayato. He was considered second only to the emperor, above all others. With just a nod, a family could gain prosperity. With just a shake of his head, an entire lineage could fall into ruin. Because of this, people looked at him with fear rather than genuine respect. Rumors spread about a famous Zen master said to have profound wisdom, a mind as calm as still water, unshaken by anything. Word reached Lord Hayato. Proud as he was, he wanted to see for himself, and in his heart thought that no one could stand above his power. He decided to visit the temple in person, bringing with him a large entourage, banners, drums, and great fanfare. Gongs echoed ahead, guards cleared the way, and everyone knelt as the horses passed by. The grand display only fed Lord Hayato's pride. When he stepped into the temple gates, he carried himself with authority, sitting in the main hall as if it belonged to him. He looked at the Zen master sitting quietly near the altar table and spoke sternly. People say you are enlightened. When you look at me, who do you see I am? The hall fell silent. Everyone held their breath. The Zen master lifted his gaze, his eyes clear, as though seeing beyond the glitter of power, and replied without the slightest fear, I see before me only a beggar. The words struck like thunder. The entourage stirred, some reaching for their swords ready to defend their lord. But Lord Hayato raised his hand to stop them. His eyes flared with anger, his face flushed red, his voice trembling with force. Do you know who I am? I am the governor holder of life and death in this land. All must bow before me. How dare you insult me? The master remained calm, his voice soft as a breeze. Because everything you hold, power, wealth, reputation, does not truly belong to you. They are only borrowed robes, which will one day fall away. Wherever you go, you demand respect and bowing. If not, you grow angry. In that, how are you different from a beggar always extending his hand, waiting for the approval of others? The hall sank into silence. The words pierced Lord Hayato's heart. For years he had been proud of his power, but now he saw a harsh truth. All the fear and respect he enjoyed were not lasting. They depended entirely on others. Deep inside, he was still weak, always craving recognition. He sat quietly for a long time. Shoulders once heavy with authority now slumped. His voice grew hoarse, trembling. Master, please show me the way to be free from this slavery. The Zen master smiled gently. When you no longer need others' respect, when you no longer live off the gaze of the world, then you will truly be free. Let go of the self, and you will see you lack nothing. Lord Hayato bowed low. For the first time in his life, the powerful governor tasted the humility of surrender. In that silent temple, he knew he had taken his first step on the long road to liberation. Imagine a golden vase gleaming on the outside, admired by all. But if inside it is filled with only dust, where is its true value? Human beings are the same. Status, wealth, and titles are only the outer shell. If the heart within is not pure, not clear, then all the glory is nothing but an empty vessel. Or like a peacock with its dazzling feathers, beautiful, yes, but if inside it trembles with fear, that beauty is only surface deep and brings no real peace. This story reminds us of a simple truth. Few want to face a person's worth is not measured by position, wealth, or others' praise, but by whether the heart knows how to live freely, humbly, and without arrogance. Power and possessions are like clouds, a passing breeze, and they vanish. The only thing that remains is the quality of the heart. In daily life, we often believe that success, praise, or social standing are the measure of happiness. But the more we cling to them, the more we become slaves to the opinions of others. We work not to live joyfully, but to gain approval. We smile not out of true happiness, but to maintain an image. A life like this only tires the heart further. So when you achieve success, remember that glory is only temporary. If you wear it as a crown and cling to it, you will soon feel its weight. Instead, see success as a rest stop on your journey. Enjoy it lightly, then keep moving. Likewise, when you are criticized or unrecognized, instead of getting angry or wounded, see it as a valuable chance to reflect. Perhaps you are too dependent on others' respect. When you let go of that need, your heart feels light, as though shedding an invisible armor. In daily interactions, we often want others to bow before us. But try reversing roles. Bow with humility before others. That humility is what makes you truly great. A humble smile, a gentle word, a respectful gesture, small as they seem, they make your true worth shine brighter than any title. The Buddha once said, "Whoever lets go of arrogance attains peace." When you no longer need to prove your value through power or fame, you discover how free you really are. You are no longer bound by comparisons, no longer fearful of loss, no longer hungry for praise. Instead, you live simply at ease and rich from within. In the end, remember your worth does not lie in others' eyes, but in whether your heart is open, free, and loving. When you live this way, even without anyone bowing to you, you are already the wealthiest and greatest of all. See a mighty governor in just a single moment saw through his ego. And from that moment of humility, the true spiritual path opened before him. But that path is not shaped only by teachings, it is also formed by the genuine love a teacher holds for a student. Let us now step into the next story, the student and the teacher's heart, to see how sometimes a heart full of compassion can be more powerful than 1,000 words. Have you ever felt that you have studied many teachings, read countless scriptures, listened to many Dharma talks, yet inside you still feel empty, never truly touching peace? That is because knowledge and words, no matter how valuable, are not enough without love as the foundation. As human beings, we do not only need instruction through reason, we also need to be warmed by the heart. A dry teaching may only reach the ear, but a compassionate heart can penetrate to the very bones, transforming an entire life. The Buddha once taught, "Even if you speak 1,000 words, if they do not bring peace, it is better to speak just one word that brings calm." This reminds us that what matters is not the number of words, but the strength of love and sincerity behind them. The story, the student and the teacher's heart, is proof of this truth. Long ago, in a small temple hidden among quiet mountains, there was a young novice named Kenta. He was known for his sharp mind and quickness. Any scripture he heard once he could recite by heart. Every Dharma talk his teacher gave, he remembered word for word. His fellow monks admired him, but inside, Kenta felt no peace. Despite all the knowledge he had accumulated, his heart was still heavy with anger, doubt, and restlessness. One evening after the chanting session, Kenta gathered his courage, knelt before his teacher, and asked, "Master, I have studied so many scriptures, memorized every line, but why does my heart still not feel at ease?" The teacher looked at him with kind eyes but said nothing. The silence only deepened Kenta's confusion. The next morning, the teacher called him over and handed him a piece of paper. On it were just 4 simple words: "Compassion relieves suffering." Then the teacher said, "Go down to the village and see if anyone needs these words." Kenta felt disappointed. In his mind, he thought, why doesn't Master teach me profound doctrines or mystical koans, but only writes these 4 simple words? Yet he still obeyed, taking the paper down the mountain. The road into the village was covered in dust, the wind carrying dry leaves with Kenta's steps. At the gate of the village, he met an old woman sitting by the roadside, her eyes filled with tears. She had just lost her son in the war, her heart broken. Kenta froze, not knowing how to comfort her. Suddenly he remembered the paper and shyly handed it to her. The old woman trembled as she took it, read it aloud. "Compassion relieves suffering." In that instant, she burst into tears, clutching the paper to her chest as if it were a treasure. She whispered, "Yes, only compassion can ease this pain." Kenta stood there, stunned. Could 4 simple words truly hold such power? He continued walking. Along the way, Kenta found a little child sitting curled up by a stream, eyes sad and lonely. Asking gently, he learned the child had been abandoned by friends and felt isolated. Again, Kenta pulled out the paper and handed it over. The child looked at it, tears brimming, then suddenly smiled, the first smile after many days of silent crying. Kenta was speechless. He felt as if his own heart was being healed. When he returned to the temple, Kenta knelt before his teacher, tears streaming down. "Master, I understand now. No matter how many scriptures or lofty words, they are nothing compared to a heart that knows compassion. Only compassion can ease suffering." The teacher looked at him and smiled gently. "You have learned the most important lesson. The Dharma is not found in books or chants, but in the heart that knows how to love and to feel." Kenta bowed deeply. Within him, the restlessness of so long suddenly dissolved, replaced by quiet peace. From then on, whenever he studied scriptures or meditated, he no longer only tried to memorize but opened his heart, letting each word, each breath sink in with compassion. And Kenta realized that the path of practice is not about accumulating more, but about returning to one simple truth that is enough compassion relieves suffering. Imagine a seed that needs soil, water, and sunlight to sprout. If it only has theories of soil and water, it will never grow into a tree. So it is with us. We may have knowledge, reasoning, and scriptures, but without compassion, life remains barren without the fruits of peace. Or think of a musical instrument. The strings may be in tune, the notes technically correct, but if the player lacks heart, the music will be cold. Only when love is poured into it will the sound move the soul. The story. The student and the teacher's heart reminds us of a simple yet profound truth. Knowledge without compassion is only dry words. No matter how much one knows or remembers, it cannot bring healing to oneself or to others without the warmth of empathy. Knowledge can open the door to understanding, but only compassion opens the way to the human heart. In life, you can see this everywhere. When raising children, they may not remember every instruction, but they will remember the patient gaze, the warm embrace of their parents. A harsh scolding may breed resistance, but a word spoken with love can soften the heart, allowing them to listen and change. When advising friends or colleagues, logic may silence them for a moment, but only genuine care will make them open up and receive. For people are not only reason, they are also heart. A clever but cold remark passes quickly, but even a small act of sincerity leaves a lasting mark. Even in meditation, it is the same. If we only focus on technique sitting correctly, breathing evenly, meditation becomes rigid. But when we breathe with love for our tired body, love for those suffering in the world, love for life that sustains us, each breath becomes a healing stream. Meditation, then, is no longer an exercise, but life itself. The Buddha once taught, "Make compassion your foundation." Without compassion, all teachings are meaningless. Truly, the Dharma only comes alive when joined with compassion. Knowledge without compassion can lead to pride, but compassion with understanding gives rise to wisdom. When you open your heart, the teachings no longer stay on the page or in words, but become your breath, your smile, your eyes, your every small gesture in daily life. And at that moment, knowledge and compassion unite, leading you to a fuller and more peaceful life. A student may memorize all the scriptures, but only when he touches the heart does he truly understand the path. And from that heart, compassion can radiate, relieving the suffering of others and of himself. Now, let us move to the next story, The Grain of Salt in the Lake. This story will show you that no matter how bitter suffering may taste, if your heart is wide enough, the bitterness will dissolve, leaving only forgiveness and peace. In life, every one of us has tasted suffering when someone hurts us, when an unexpected event happens, or simply when a single remark makes us sad all day. Sometimes, just one small thing is enough to throw our hearts into turmoil. Have you ever asked yourself why, with the same event, one person suffers greatly while another lets it go easily? With the same criticism, one person is in pain while another just smiles. Is it because the other person is luckier than we are, or because they have a larger heart so suffering no longer shakes them? The Buddha once taught, "When the mind is vast, suffering does not touch it. When the mind is narrow, suffering stirs it." This teaching reminds us that the issue is not only external circumstances, but the capacity of our own hearts. The story, The Grain of Salt in the Lake, will help us understand this clearly. Long ago, in a temple hidden in a quiet valley, there lived an elderly Zen master respected by many. One afternoon, as the last light of day turned the temple courtyard gold, a young student came to him, face sorrowful, eyes red. Bowing his head, he said, "Master, I am suffering so much. Even small things leave me sad and angry. When someone says something that hurts me, I hold on to it and can't forget. When someone disappoints me, I let that pain cling to me day after day. What should I do?" The master sat silently, his kind eyes resting on the student, not rushing to advise. After a while, he stood up, slowly went into the kitchen, and returned with a handful of white salt in his hand. Without a word, he dropped the salt into a glass full of water stirred gently and handed it to the student. "Taste it." The young man grimaced as soon as the first drop touched his tongue. "It's bitterly salty. Very hard to drink, master." The master smiled gently, still offering no explanation. He stood and led the student to the back of the temple, where there was a large lake, its surface calm, reflecting clouds and sky. Quietly, he scattered another handful of salt into the lake. It dissolved into the vast water. Then he scooped up a ladle of lake water and gave it to the student. "Try this." The student did as told. The water was cool and pure, not salty at all. He was surprised, his eyes full of wonder. The master spoke slowly, his voice warm, like an evening breeze passing over the lake. "The suffering within you is like this handful of salt. It is neither more nor less. But if your heart is as small as a cup, that suffering will be unbearably salty and suffocating. If your heart is as vast as the lake, that suffering will dissolve and no longer disturb you." Hearing this, the young man stood still as if a door in his heart had just been opened. For years he had blamed life and others, never thinking to expand his own heart. It turned out the suffering was not in the event itself, but in the capacity of the heart to hold it. He bowed his head, tears falling not from pain, but from recognizing the path of liberation for himself. From that day on, he no longer let small things grip his heart. Whenever someone made him sad, he remembered the lake behind the temple. He practiced widening his heart so suffering could dissolve into it like salt, dissolving in a vast lake. That student gradually became calmer and more forgiving, and within that spaciousness, he found the peace he had longed for. Imagine a small stone thrown into a glass. It will make the glass overflow. But thrown into the ocean, the stone simply sinks and the surface remains calm. Or when walking along a road, if you only look at the mud on your shoes, you feel annoyed. But if you lift your gaze to the wide sky, the mud hardly matters. Our hearts are the same. When narrow, we are easily shaken by small bumps. When wide, we can embrace even what once felt unbearable. The story, a handful of salt in a glass and a large lake, teaches a simple yet profoundly deep truth. Suffering does not reside in the event itself, but in our heart's capacity. It is how we receive and hold things that make suffering heavy or light. A handful of salt in a small glass makes the water bitterly salty, but the same handful in a large lake does not change the cool sweetness of the water. In daily life, try reflecting on this. When someone's careless words hurt you, if your heart is confined to that sentence, it will be like a small glass filled with salt. You will replay it over and over, letting it haunt you for a day, a week, even years. But if you open your heart and see that person as someone who is also suffering, also struggling with their own insecurities, you will feel less anger, less attachment, and your heart will be lighter. When facing failure, many see it as the end and let it occupy their entire mind. That too is a small glass that cannot hold the salt. But if you view failure as just one grain of salt in the vast lake of your life, you will realize that a single stumble cannot define the entire journey. In the expansiveness of the lake, that grain of salt dissolves, and you can keep moving forward with a steady heart. When anxiety engulfs you, Instead of letting your mind spiral, practice sitting down and taking one breath in, one breath out, clearly aware of impermanence. Just as salt dissolves in water, every anxiety will pass. Nothing lasts forever. It is precisely this openness and acceptance of impermanence that keeps you from being swept away. The Buddha once taught the mind is like the ocean, embracing all rivers, yet never overflowing. The ocean receives every stream, clear or muddy, cool or warm, yet remains vast and open. In the same way, when your heart is spacious, any suffering becomes a small grain of salt, not strong enough to bring you down. Then you will find yourself free at ease and able to smile in the face of life's changes. You see, the grain of salt in a glass is bitterly salty, but in a lake it dissolves. The problem is not the salt, but the capacity of the heart. Likewise, when we learn to expand our hearts, suffering can no longer bind us. Now, let us move on to the next story, Rain Falling on the Roof. That story will remind us that some pains come as suddenly as a rainstorm and cannot be avoided. But if we know how to receive them, the rain can become a music that leads us into peace. Have you ever sat alone at night, listening to the rain falling on the roof, and felt both peaceful and quietly sad? Rain can bring cool freshness, but it can also stir up sorrowful memories, wounds not yet healed. Life is like that. Sometimes suffering comes unexpectedly, like a sudden shower without warning. We cannot choose when it arrives, but we can choose how to face it. Many people, when faced with hardship, often ask, "Why is this happening to me?" But the Buddha taught rain and wind do not choose where to fall. It is only when the mind clings that we feel suffering. This reminds us that the important thing is not to stop the rain, but to find a way to stand firm under it. The story, Rain Falling on the Roof, is a gentle reminder. Sometimes peace does not come from avoiding suffering, but from the ability to accept it as a natural part of life. That night in the mountains, a heavy rain poured down. The drops struck the old temple roof with a steady drumming sound. Rainwater seeped through cracks in the tiles, dripping onto the wooden floor, each drop echoing in the dark. Inside the meditation hall, a young monk sat cross-legged, trying to steady his mind, but turmoil filled his heart. The rain sounded like pounding drums, striking deep into his thoughts. Old memories rose up, hardship and childhood wounds, not yet healed faces that had caused him pain. His mind drifted further into a future clouded with uncertainty, where no light seemed to guide him. Each drop of rain felt like a needle piercing his young heart, full of doubt. Lost in his troubles, he did not notice soft footsteps approaching. The abbot, hair streaked with gray, quietly sat down beside him. Without speaking, he simply sat, breathing in rhythm with the sound of the rain. After a while, in a warm voice, the abbot asked, "What are you hearing right now?" The young monk looked up confused. "Master, I hear the rain, but it is so noisy. It keeps my mind from being still." The abbot smiled gently, eyes full of kindness. "You are mistaken. It is not the rain that makes you restless. Because your mind is restless, the rain becomes noise. If your mind were still, the rain would also be still." Those words entered the young monk's heart like a drop of cool water. He sat quietly, exhaling deeply. For the first time, he tried letting go of all thought. No resistance, no rejection, only listening. The rain still fell, but instead of heavy pounding, it became a gentle rhythm. Each drop no longer pierced like a needle, but sang like music from the earth and sky. He realized the rain was still rain, but his mind had changed. The rain had no intent to disturb or to soothe. It was his own mind that gave it the color of unrest or calm. When the mind is unsettled, rain becomes suffering. When the mind is calm, rain becomes song. From that night on, the young monk no longer feared the rain. Each time a heavy storm came, he sat in stillness, listening as if to a symphony of nature. The sound of raindrops reminded him suffering is simply suffering. By itself, it has no fixed form. Only when we cling does it become a burden. If we release suffering, it becomes a silent teacher, showing us how to return to stillness. And so, from a noisy storm in the night, a young monk found the path to silence within. Imagine a dark room with a leaking roof. If you only sit there complaining, the water keeps dripping. But if you place a bowl beneath the leak, the dripping becomes rhythm. You can listen to it as meditation music, or think of walking in the rain. If you resist, each drop annoys you. But if you accept it, the rain becomes a gentle touch, like the cool hand of the earth. The difference does not lie in the rain, it lies in the attitude of the mind. This story reminds us of a simple yet deep truth. Suffering in life is like rain. It comes, stays for a while, and goes. No one can order the rain to stop, nor command it to fall as they wish. The only thing we can do is change the way we receive it. In life, many of us react to suffering as people do to rain, rushing to escape, grumbling in frustration, or endlessly complaining. But think about it. Rain never intends to harm. It simply follows its natural cycle. Suffering is the same. It does not come to destroy us, but to remind us to look deeper within. If we pause, breathe deeply, and listen to sorrow or anger, as we listen to rain on the roof, we will see them slowly dissolve. The more we resist, the more exhausted we become. The more we release, the more we see suffering as fleeting as passing rain. And when misfortune comes, instead of asking, "Why me?" try asking, "What is this rain teaching me?" Perhaps it teaches patience or gratitude for sunny days, or appreciation for the shelter above. In the same way, suffering teaches us compassion, slowness, and the value of moments without pain. The Buddha once taught, "As rain leaks through a cracked roof, craving enters an untrained mind. But as rain cannot seep through a well-built roof, so suffering cannot penetrate a mind protected by mindfulness." With practice, when we shelter the heart in mindfulness, life's rain is no longer a burden. It becomes music, a gentle reminder to return to clarity and stillness. Therefore, the important thing is not to avoid the rain, but to learn how to sit calmly within it. When you can do this, you will realize that peace has never left you. Rain is still rain. When the mind suffers, it is noise. When the mind is calm, it is music. Likewise, suffering itself is neutral. It is only the mind that assigns meaning. And when we know how to let go, suffering becomes a profound practice. Now, let us move on to the next story. Is that really so? This story will show you that sometimes, instead of reacting immediately to praise or blame, right or wrong, you can simply smile and let go, and the truth will reveal itself. Have you ever realized that most of the suffering in life does not come from the actual event itself, but from the way we react to it? Someone says a word, and we flare up. Someone criticizes us, and our hearts immediately ache. A rumor or a misunderstanding can keep us awake for many nights. The Buddha once taught, "Those who are angry at words are like people throwing hot ashes against the wind themselves will be burned." If we do not stop to reflect, we will be swept away by waves of emotion. But if we know how to stay calm, not rushing to believe right away, and instead ask ourselves, "Is that really so?" we open the door to freedom. Long ago, in a small village on the mountainside, there lived a Zen master who led a simple, humble life. He owned nothing but a patched robe and a gentle smile always on his lips. Each morning he taught the village children to read. In the afternoons he cared for the elderly who had no one. And in the evenings he chanted sutras and meditated in his little hut. Everyone in the village respected him, seeing him as a shining example of compassion and purity. But life is full of surprises. In the village, there was a young woman who in a moment of weakness became pregnant out of wedlock. When her parents questioned her, she was terrified and could not admit the truth. Cornered, she blurted out a shocking lie. It was the Zen master on the mountain. He is the father of the child. That false accusation was like a spark falling into dry grass. The rumor spread quickly, igniting the villagers' anger. Crowds gathered at the master's hut, shouting, insulting, and hurling harsh words at the teacher they had once revered. Yet before them all, the Zen master only bowed his head quietly. He did not defend himself, did not grow angry. He only answered with 3 simple words, "Is that really so?" Time passed, and when the baby was born, the girl's parents brought the child to the hut. With stern voices they said, "This is your child, you must raise it." Once again, the master did not argue. He quietly took the child into his arms, eyes full of love, and softly said, "Is that really so?" From that day on, his life changed. Alongside his daily practice, he cared for the child, feeding it, rocking it to sleep, soothing it when it cried. The villagers still whispered, still mocked him, but he never uttered a word of resentment. The child grew day by day in his arms, never lacking in love. A year later, the young woman could no longer bear the weight of her conscience. In front of everyone, she broke down in tears and confessed the truth that the child's father was a young man in the village, and the Zen master had nothing to do with it. The news shocked everyone. Ashamed, they went up the mountain to beg the master for forgiveness. The Zen master smiled gently, handed the child back to its real parents, and before their embarrassed eyes once again said softly, "Is that really so?" That story has been passed down for generations as a living example of the power of patience and a mind free from attachment. The master did not need to defend his honor because he knew truth does not need words. With a compassionate heart, he saw even slander and suffering as passing waves on the still lake of the awakened mind. Those who hear the story often ask themselves, if it were me facing such humiliation, could I smile and simply reply, "Is that really so?" Imagine an empty boat drifting. When it bumps into your boat, you do not get angry because you know no one is steering it. But if you see someone on the boat, you immediately grow angry and blame them for carelessness. In reality, the situation is the same, just 2 boats colliding, but your mind, through attachment and labeling, created suffering. In the same way, when people speak ill of you, if you know how to pause and ask, "Is that really so?" their words become nothing more than an empty boat drifting by, unable to harm you. The story Is That Really So is a clear example of living with equanimity in the face of praise and blame, truth and falsehood. What makes us suffer is not the words or events themselves, but the clinging, the hasty belief of our mind. When praised, we are easily intoxicated with pride. When criticized, we quickly react with anger and resentment. But if we pause and ask, "Is that really so?" then praise is only a passing breeze, and blame only a drifting cloud. In daily life, you can practice this very concretely. When hearing praise, do not rush to embrace it as something to feed your ego. Ask silently, "Is that really so?" Because the truth is, talent, virtue, or success today can all change tomorrow. When hearing criticism, do not explode in defense. Look honestly. If part of it is true, correct yourself. If part is false, let it go. And when misunderstood, instead of struggling to explain, stay mindful. Truth does not need to shout. It shines like the sun, only waiting for the clouds to part. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." This teaching is our guiding lamp. The true practitioner does not chase after waves of opinion. They know fame is like foam on the water, rising, then disappearing. True peace is only found in the stillness of the mind. So in life, whenever you hear something said about you, pause. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Do not react right away. Ask yourself, is this entirely true or only a fragment colored by another's view? Then remind yourself, fame is passing wind. Truth is a peaceful mind. When you practice like this, you will no longer be swept away by the cycle of praise and blame, gain and loss. You will walk steadily on the path of awakening with a gentle smile and a free heart. And whenever storms arise, just by quietly asking, "Is that really so?" you will find your heart calm like a windless lake. You see with only 3 words, "Is that really so?" the Zen master transcended the storm of slander. He did not argue, did not defend himself. He simply remained in stillness, letting the truth reveal itself. And so we have walked together through a journey of Zen stories. Each story is like a lamp, lighting the path back to inner peace. This journey reminds us that peace is not far away, but present in how we respond to each moment of life. When we pause, breathe deeply, smile and ask, "Is that really so?" we have already stepped into freedom. Throughout this journey, we have shared stories, teachings, and meaningful silences. Just as one candle can light thousands without its flame diminishing the mindfulness and awareness you nurture, today can spread, warming you and those around you. The most miraculous thing is not what you must do to create stillness, but realizing that stillness has always been within you, like a calm lake beneath the waves of thought. Each time you let go of a burden, you come closer to that peace. The Buddha once said, "In the end, only 3 things matter: how much you have loved, how gently you have lived, and how gracefully you have let go of what was not meant for you." Let these words become your breath each day, so that love, gentleness, and letting go become the light that guides your life. If tonight you feel lighter and more at peace, know that the seed of mindfulness has been planted. It will continue to grow even as you sleep. This peace is not fleeting. It is the true nature of the mind, waiting for you to return and recognize it. I want to thank you sincerely for walking with Buddhism Seeds. If these sharings have brought you peace and inspiration, please subscribe to the channel, hit like, share with friends, and leave a comment about what touched you the most. Your connection not only nourishes the channel, but also helps spread the seeds of compassion and wisdom to many more people. Now let your eyes gently close, allowing your body and mind to rest. I wish you a deep, peaceful sleep. See you again in the next stories where the light of wisdom and compassion will continue to guide the way. Good night.